everybody. Welcome to this morning's post-cabinet press briefing. My name is Leslie Ann Johnson, welcoming all of you viewing on GIS Channel 22 and, of course, in the diaspora as well as online. Welcome to this morning's post-cabinet press briefing. We have with us the Honorable Minister for Health, Social Security and International Business, the Honorable Nicholas Steele. He's to my immediate left, and to his left, Mr. Charlton Henry, the Acting Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Health. And we're expecting a little later the Acting Commissioner of Police, Mr. Edwin Martin. So what basically they'll be doing this morning is just giving us some health updates. So I turn you over now to the Honorable Minister for Health.
Thank you very much, and a good morning to all of your listeners and viewers, wherever you are, and a seasoned greetings to everyone. Let me first start by introducing the new Acting Permanent Secretary in Ministry of Health, International Business and Social Security, Mr. Charlton Henry. He does have another function to go to, so I want to first and foremost introduce him so you can see the new face of the new head administrator in the Ministry of Health. I want to welcome him and to say that he has hit the ground running, hence he does have another meeting to go to. So I'm not sure if you want to say a few words quickly, just to let everybody know who you are and to be welcome to the nation.
Okay, good. Good morning, everybody. My name is Charlton Henry, Acting Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Health, Social Services and International Business. Just a couple of weeks in the office, and I'm trying to get myself familiar with the office, the people and everything, as endeavoring to provide service to the nation. Thank you.
Thank you, P.S. Henry, and you may be a bit camera shy, but most definitely capable of running the ministry. So, having said that, and P.S. will sneak out at the appropriate time, but I also want to take this opportunity to congratulate our Empower graduates who graduated last week, and also to congratulate the government and people of Dominica on a successful elections. First update with respect to health matters. Our delegation from the Ministry of Health returned from Cuba. That delegation went to Cuba to seek out or to investigate the possibility of bringing Cuban nurses into Grenada as a stopgap. And let me stress, as a stopgap right now, to stem the flow of nurses that we have had leaving Grenada to better opportunities from their point of view abroad, mainly in the UK. As a result, the Ministry of Health has to focus on providing health care to the people of Grenada, regardless of the challenges that we have. While it is unfortunate that we are losing some of our nurses to foreign first world nations, we do have to make sure that we make every effort to maintain the proper complement of nurses serving Grenada. It is not the ideal solution, but it is one of the solutions that we, not just us, but most of the other Caribbean islands. Grenada is not the only OECS or Carriacou country to have sent a delegation to Cuba to look for nurses. As you know, the Cuban government has excess nurses and doctors. While there, the delegation interviewed approximately 100 individuals. We are seeking out somewhere between 20 to 40 nurses in various specialties. The reason that we have to deal with this situation is that those nurses who are leaving are more experienced nurses. And while we do have a nursing school in conjunction with SGU, those nurses who are graduating, while they are graduating with a bachelor's degree, they are lacking in experience. So it is not easy or advisable for us to send them out into the communities unsupervised initially. So that is why we have to look, like other Caribbean islands, at other solutions, extra-regional solutions, or solutions from Cuba. The next challenge or the next exercise that the ministry has to go through before being able to bring these nurses or any of the others that we are looking at would be to find the appropriate housing for them. In the interim, I know that there have been comments on social media and elsewhere as to the cost and why is the government not paying for the nurses that are here. I would be most willing to do so if there was a mechanism for us to do so, but as you know, we have a public service system here, and there are certain restrictions. I look forward to the day when we can pay our nurses, doctors, and anyone else within the healthcare system additional monies for that appropriate level of service that they would be giving to the public. In the interim, we have to do like Barbados, like Trinidad, like Jamaica, like Antigua, like St. Lucia, and look outside of the region for nurses. The other part is that we are soon to start, if we're still on schedule, for a January start on our nursing assistant training program. We are in final negotiations with La Boucaine and the National Training Authority of Grenada, as well as the Ministry of Youth and Education, to finalize the training of 50 nursing assistants in 2 batches of 25. I look forward to that starting. We do have some final meetings just to make sure that we meet the criteria of Nursing Council, meet the criteria of the National Training Authority, as well as the La Boucaine and the Ministry of Health. I expect that that can be resolved within the next week, and that we can start the selection process to have those classes start in early January. Oxygen production at the hospital. We have received information that allows us to go out and bid for a new oxygen generating plant, which is necessary based on the additional demand from the phase 2. And as you know, we have been plagued with the current oxygen generating system being off and on in terms of working and not working. We have made a decision that rather than just simply purchase a facility that will deal with phase 2, to look at a complete upgrade of the entire oxygen generating system. I expect to send out RFPs within this month and look at procurement, beginning that procurement process in January. Elevators as well. We did receive clearance in the 2020 budget from Cabinet to replace the elevators in the current General Hospital. There are only 2 or 3 suppliers of elevators within the region, so we will be sending out an RFP for that. That estimated cost or budgeted cost is 1.5 million EC dollars. I am hoping that that comes in below that so that we can use those savings, but I will give you further updates as we proceed with that process. The CT scanner that was announced and graciously donated to the Government of Grenada, people in Government of Grenada, by the Maria Holder Foundation. We're in the final stages there. What we have to do, which we completed this week, would be to show proof of insurance and proof of a maintenance contract or schedule for that CT scanner. We have got that information. We'll be passing it on to Maria Holder Foundation and expect the procurement to proceed in a speedy fashion so that we can have that implemented in our phase 2. Speaking of phase 2, as of this week, the electricity, not the temporary, but the official electricity connection will be done, which will allow for the testing of the various bits of equipment there, which would be the ACs, the elevator, etc. And as we move in the various health equipment, the testing of that as well. We have actually been having our senior management meetings in that building, although it is still a construction site, so to speak. It is in a condition, and we believe in order to accelerate the process, we have been having weekly senior management meetings in the phase 2 building, and immediately following that, we have been having meetings with the contractor for weekly updates to make sure that all stays on schedule for the much awaited phase 2, which would be, again, just to remind members of the public, it would be an accident and emergency. It will be a brand new imaging center, which is X-ray, CT scan, etc., outpatient section, as well as new labs and administrative offices for the General Hospital. I also want to take this opportunity to say part of that lab moving our labs is a 2-phase process. not only will we be moving the current lab facilities, but as you are aware, well, I would like to inform you that we have finalized with the OECS health project, which is from the World Bank funded project, that we will be moving, we have received funding to move our lab to a tier 1 system, which would be the best system in the OECS. We have partnered with Caribbean Med Lab Foundation as well to give us the necessary technical support for that. The budget is there from the IDA, so not only would there be a move to a new facility, there will be a complete upgrade of our existing. Now, that's not just the physical upgrade, but also personnel, training of the required personnel to maintain and run our hospital lab moving forward. Last week, we were visited by visiting doctors from the HERO Foundation. I want to thank them for the work they did. HERO is involved in particular in Grenada here with the setting up or connecting of fistulas to people, which allow them to do dialysis. So they have been giving that surgical support for dialysis patients. They also had a visiting plastic surgeon that came in. Now, that plastic surgeon, I know, worked significantly with individuals who may have had mastectomies due to breast cancer or so, or other ailments that cosmetic ailments. Dialysis, while we're speaking of dialysis, we are on schedule, as promised, as announced in the budget, that we will be providing, Ministry of Health will be providing dialysis facilities. It is a two-phased approach. The first phase would be to procure 2 portable dialysis machines. These will be initially set up at the General Hospital in a very timely manner to allow for dialysis treatment at the General Hospital. We have received an all clear from the UAE government that they will be giving us support on the procurement of 5 additional permanent dialysis chairs. Once those are procured, those chairs will go to the General Hospital to be set up there, a 5-man or 5-person dialysis unit, and the mobile chair units would be moved, 1 to Princess Alice and 1 to Princess Royal in Carriacou, to allow for dialysis facilities at our 3 hospital locations. In the interim, the reason that we are doing it in this two-phase approach is that we want to very quickly start providing dialysis treatment to the general public, and that would be done at the General Hospital first, as I said, with the 2 mobile units, and then rolling out to Princess Alice and Princess Royal. Central dispatch. While I've spoken previously that we have full complement of ambulances, and we're actually in the process of procuring additional ambulances in order for this service, ambulatory service, 434, as we say here, or 911, as you know internationally, for that system to work as efficiently and effectively as possible, it is necessary to have a central dispatch system. The way the system currently works and has operated for decades is that the number you call would either be to your local health center, police station, or hospital, i.e. Princess Alice or General Hospital, and it's actually answered with, in the case of the General Hospital, by individuals in the accident and emergency department, the very nurses and doctors who would be dealing with traumas and stress there. That is not the most efficient system, and the more efficient system is to have a coordinated central dispatch system, which is coordinated with police and fire. I am told that the requests for proposals have gone out, and the tenders, they're waiting to receive the tenders to analyze and go with the necessary procurement. We are looking forward to that. That would be the next step in making sure that there's efficient ambulatory services here in Grenada. We also have reached out to various other entities and organizations to have a technical strengthening in terms of training and individuals here to set up a proper ambulatory or emergency medical system, response system in Grenada. So over the next month, or two, you will be beginning to see additional benefits, not just the number of ambulances, but the number of qualified persons. And like I said, the one thing that I'm looking forward to that will make a significant difference as well is that central dispatch system. I announced about a month ago that we had received certification from CAM, which is a Caribbean accreditation system for hospitals, teaching hospitals. Our general hospital has been certified as a regional teaching facility for internship program. We are licensed or certified for teaching of 20 interns at a time. And therefore, we are taking in, while we have had interns at our general hospital for years, in January, the batch that is coming in would be the first batch under the certification. The batch that would be graduating would be the first batch that's graduating under CAM certification. That means that they are recognized, that the general hospital is recognized as a regional facility for internship programs, and therefore all of the OECS and CARICOM countries would recognize any individual who has done their internship program in Grenada. We already have requests from individuals as far as St. Kitts to come and do their internship program here. That you can see the benefits of having additional personnel here doing their internships while they are newly graduated. There are additional individuals who will lend support to the provision of medical services at the general hospital. The next step on that would be to roll out an internship program into mental health and community. This would allow, one, the increase of a physical presence of qualified individuals, because remember, interns are going to be accompanied by a qualified consultant or specialist. So, and you would have a number of interns physically present as well at our mental facilities and at our community facilities. We are looking to roll that out, I would think, by the second half of 2020. We also received on Friday communication from the United States Department of Education that is now officially recognizing our Grenada Medical and Dental Council as the official national accreditation body for medical educating facilities in Grenada. Previously, we subscribed to a regional entity called CAM-HP to certify all medical educating facilities here, specifically SGU. Last year, we announced that we would begin the journey to have our own national council be the accreditation body. That journey has resulted in the United States recognizing that medical and dental council as a qualified certification or accreditation body. So I want to congratulate them for this journey. It has been a laborious task. It involves them visiting all of the sites that SGU students would do internships or residencies throughout the U.S., etc., and making sure that a certain standard is maintained. And the fact that the United States Department of Education has recognized the work that they are doing and their qualifications is something that worthy of mention. Having said that, I want to thank CAM-HP for the work that they have done. They have given us tremendous support throughout the decades. We have complete admiration for CAM-HP, but we just think that at this point in time, nationally, we have progressed to a point where we can have our own national body. We will still recognize CAM-HP accreditation, but the supreme accreditation body, so to speak, in Grenada would be the Grenada Medical and Dental Council. I also want to take this opportunity to thank the Healthy Caribbean Coalition. They sent an open letter to myself and the Minister of Education congratulating us for our recent ban of sugar products in our educating facilities. I'm asking you, members of the media, to give us that support as well. It is partially education or primarily education in terms of healthy lifestyles. Some of us at our age have habits that are difficult to change. But for our young ones, it is easier to get them into certain tastes, certain habits, certain dietary practices that will result in a healthier lifestyle. We in Grenada, like most, if not all of the Caribbean islands, are plagued with non-communicable diseases, particularly those that stem from sugar or abuse of sugar, obesity, as well as heart conditions. So we have been congratulated, but that is just a first step. We do need to continue the pressure, the education, the public awareness on that. And we will be coming with some other announcements that will involve you participating with us in an initiative that I would like I can refer to as Grenada Moves. It is part of a Caribbean initiative called Caribbean Moves, and it is getting all of us out there more in exercise and movement, and I'm looking for various champions in all of the sectors. So I'm looking for a champion from the media, a flag bearer as well, that will challenge your own peers to participate in various activities. There will be an announcement over the next week or so, press release with respect to the progress on national health insurance. There is significant work being done behind the scenes now with respect to financing, with respect to health system strengthening, with respect to getting ready for registration, etc. The National Insurance Scheme and JIPA, as well as the Ministry of Health, will be making a joint release on that. And at the end of my question and answer section, I will be handing over. Let me take this opportunity to welcome our Acting Chief of Police. And we will be discussing the imminent rollout of breathalyzer systems in Grenada. As you know, we passed legislation with respect to DUI blood alcohol levels and to allow for breathalyzers to be used in the enforcement. There is a planned rollout date of the 16th of December. For that, Cabinet gave approval on that, and the necessary regulations and legislations will be in place for that rollout to allow the police to enforce our DUI legislations, our laws, and to hopefully avoid any fatalities over the Christmas period, and will allow us to celebrate our Christmas with moderation. So having said that, I am open to questions and to give you answers. Thank you. Or comments.
Thank you, Minister. Colleagues, please identify yourselves and your media house and then proceed to ask your questions. Go right ahead.
Morning, Akeisha Felix, the Grenada Broadcasting Network. Okay, so as you would have mentioned about the interns, right? How does it affect the interns from SGU? Because you said it's a total of 20 interns for the hospital. So having the regional students a part of this, how does it affect the SGU interns?
It doesn't. We have taken approximately 15 to 17 students before. We will still be taking. We can now take 20. The majority of the students will be coming from our SGU. Well, the majority of students will be Grenadians. We do have students who have qualified outside of Grenada as well that come into the internship program. It is on a first-come, first-served basis, primarily Grenadians. And when we do have a space, like this time around, it appears that we do have one space, extra space, and that additional space should be filled by a clinician who has applied and has passed the necessary qualifications. But the majority of our interns consistently, we have had in the past interns from Guyana and other CARICOM, from Trinidad and other CARICOM areas. So it's not any change in terms of who can get in. It is a change in terms of after participating in an internship program, they would have a CAM certification.
Okay, my next question. So you'd have mentioned all the commendations given to the Grenada Medical and Dental Association for its rating as it relates to teachings and so on. Also, the same regional students coming in to do internship at the St. George's University. While it is good for the Grenada on a whole, when would we see it actually benefiting the citizens itself, where we won't see a pregnant woman on a beach chair or an 8-year-old child going to Princess Alice Hospital and a doctor stating that she's going on a 5-minute break with like about 15 plus people waiting. Mm-hmm. So when would we see the citizens themselves actually benefiting from this, as apart from, Grenada, where we offering this good thing for aspiring doctors, but at the end, our citizens are some?
I do like that question because particularly it is obviously not a part of the level of education or educating facilities, medical educating facilities. St. George's University is one of the best facilities in the world. Doctors pass through St. George's University and work all over the world to commendation and at the highest levels in the United States. In fact, 1 out of every 10 doctors in the United States now has passed through St. George's University. It is in the individuals, I think, that we choose and the facilities. You have spoken to 2 issues. One is the overcrowding of our, in particular, obstetrics or maternity section. And I do hope to be able to announce a building out of a larger facility at the General Hospital for that. In the interim, the facts are that that facility was an 18-bed facility. There was supposed to be a rollout of within the primary healthcare system to deal with non-complicated pregnancies. We were supposed to be doing deliveries in various healthcare facilities outside of the General Hospital. There has been a breakdown in that. There is a lack of personnel as a whole and the budget constraints. It is just not practical for Grenada, a country of our size, to roll out that type of primary healthcare system at this point in time. So we have to look at the strengthening of the current facilities. We do need to increase, and I do hope to have within 2020 the start, if not the start and completion, of additional bed space for obstetrics and maternity, as well as pediatrics. We are starting that in December. I hope to start the construction of the NICU unit, or neonatal intensive care unit, which would be based on a population ratio, the largest in the OECS in terms of ratio to population, and totally adequate to deal with the situation. To deal with our healthcare challenges in terms of number of individuals or right individuals, and I support all of our healthcare workers, so I want to be very careful of this, but I do have to recognize that there are some who create a bad impression or bad reputation for the rest, the majority, who are providing human service. What has happened in the past and continues to happen, and it's not a criticism, it is a reality. The bad news of health travels rather than the good news. And that I use as a motivation to improve the system. So yes, we do have bed shortages, and yes, we do have manpower shortages, and sometimes the individuals who are providing human service are a bit short to the public, and that is what the public reports. We have to deal with that through discipline, we have to deal with that through empowerment of our individuals, and we have to deal with that through the improvement of the facilities. You see the largest budget in terms of improvement of healthcare facilities in the primary healthcare for 2020, the $6 million that comes from the OECS project to strengthen and improve those facilities. I had just announced with respect to a laboratory. That's a behind-the-scenes section of health that has been neglected as well, that we are moving not just to move them into a new building, but have received the funding for training of additional persons to bring us to a Tier 1 standard. Nursing, we now have nurses who are receiving bachelor's degrees. We are now, through the ministry, starting a nursing assistance program in January. It takes a year to train just a nursing assistant. It takes 4 years to train a qualified nurse, bachelor's degree, and that nurse comes out green, needs to be upgraded, whether it is midwifery, whether it is accident, emergency, etc. In the interim, in order to maintain the level of standard that you are expecting and the people of Grenada are expecting and demanding, we do have to look outside of the region to bring persons in. We have Cuban doctors here as well, giving us support. We have Grenadians in Cuba training, looking to come back shortly. We have Dr. Coy recently returned into pathology. Previously, there was a Cuban running that department. Dr. Coy has returned, and I look forward to Dr. Coy being able to run that department efficiently. So there is progress. While there is progress, there are still complaints. Not to say that it should be accepted, but if you Google any of the complaints that you have just mentioned, just Google any of the complaints, you will see that they exist worldwide, in first world nations as well. That is not an excuse for us to allow it to happen. I do appreciate the question because that motivates us to say that we as a people find this unacceptable and we're going to strive to improve. But I want to stress that these are issues that plague healthcare systems throughout the world. We in Grenada cannot use that as an excuse. Again, I'm saying we have to use that as motivation to constantly improve, which is why I've given you a list of the various areas that we have improved on or are improving on. And those are just initial steps. Healthcare is a continuous journey, a never-ending journey. At no point does any Ministry of Health anywhere in the world find themselves in a position where they say they have done enough and they have achieved a status quo that they can sit back and relax and maintain. You must always strive to improve. So in our striving to improve, we have to recognize and look forward to those opportunities where responsible members of the media like yourself bring up issues that are relevant, pertinent, and need to be dealt with.
Hold on. Final question. Okay, so we understand the health sector in Grenada. Everybody's aware of it, right? On social media, there are individuals, the press as well. They would have voiced some of their concerns, one of which is to have you step down as health minister. Mm-hmm. What is your take on this?
I would look forward to retirement at any point in time to go and relax. Right now, this is the challenge that I have. I accept the challenge. I did say from 2012 when I stepped forward as a member of the NNP and ran for elections that I have stepped forward to make a difference. I have been asked to make a difference in healthcare. I've accepted that challenge. I know with that challenge comes criticisms. In fact, I sometimes joke to my colleagues that the Minister of Health is considered to be the chief public health scapegoat. The Minister of Health does not administer care personally. The Minister of Health is not the chief administrator or head of any department. He is supposed to be the chief policy advisor. But I accept that somebody has to receive the blame and somebody has to make a difference. And in this instance, I'm the one wearing that hat. So I accept that and also acknowledge the fact that regardless of the progress we make, the face that needs to be criticized would be mine for the time being for any of the failures or shortcomings. We just need to make sure that the criticisms of last year are not the criticisms of this year, that we are constantly improving, and that I need to recognize that there will always be criticisms directed at myself or the office that I hold, and just make sure that we constantly improve.
Morning, Minister.
Good morning.
I just need some clarity. Your mention of the teaching hospital certification, you did mention that there will be 20 interns.
Yes.
Are these 20 new persons or persons who are already there?
The-
And how long will they be there for? that
The internship program is 1 year. So there are currently individuals who are carrying out their internship program right now. What has happened, it has been an existing program, but the program has recently received certification from CAM. Prior to that certification, that program was only recognized by the Ministry of Health of Grenada and the Grenada Medical and Dental Council, that said that they would recognize and give an individual a license, newly graduated Grenadian or someone who wants to practice in Grenada can get a license after doing a 1-year internship program at the General Hospital or anywhere else recognized. Most other countries have that. What it means now for any of the other CARICOM countries, when they refer to or anywhere else recognized, the General Hospital in Grenada is one of those institutions.
Okay. And my other clarity has to do, in terms of the nurses, the delegation from Cuba, how much nurses are we expected to see being integrated into the system? And at what cost is it estimated to cost government?
That I'm finalizing, and the initial expectation or optimistic expectation is to have between 30 and 40. But we're going to be restricted based on budgets, like everything else. In the same way that we're restricted right now on budgets in terms of getting nurses from Cuba, we will be restricted by budgets. We are looking elsewhere as well. We're looking at 2 other entities. We have reached out to Ghana, like Barbados has, and to India. We are expecting some preliminary information that will allow us to proceed, but we're going to cast a wide net and try and get as many nurses in the interim as we train up our various nurses. And truly, I think right now that we also, as a people as a whole, need to contemplate the reintroduction of the hospital authority, which would allow or would facilitate, I think, many of the solutions that not just the government, but the people and the various stakeholders, doctors and nurses and healthcare providers have been asking for.
In addition to that, with the nurses, you did mention the training of the assistants.
Yes.
At one of the, if I correct, one of the training centers recognized by the National Training Agency.
Yes.
At what CVQ level do the training take them?
That would be at, it would be a nursing assistant CVQ. I'm not familiar if that is the actual term, but yet they would receive a CVQ or at least a NVQ for a nursing assistant. That is the discussions we're having to make sure that they do have that required or will attain at the end of that 1-year program the requisite CVQ. Previously, it was just the Ministry of Health with the service provider in terms of educating, or the Ministry of Health within its own teaching school. But engaging the NTAs to ensure that the relevant vocational qualifications are achieved by the individuals.
My final question for now is, this morning I happened to pass the Grandins area, and I saw work were being done on the former Grandins Hill Center.
Yes.
Is this government property still owned?
Yes, it still is a government property.
What is going to be happening there?
That building was an eyesore. That building was condemned by Ministry of Works years ago. I visited it recently as well, just before the demolition, to confirm. I received confirmation from the Ministry of Works previously, or implementation, that it is condemned, that it is beyond repair structurally. It has been an eyesore in the community. As the representative for that area, I received numerous requests from the neighborhood to remedy the situation, and the first part of that remedy is to demolish that structure, which is unsafe. To demolish that structure. It is a government property. I would like it to be used for health, but it is a government property open to the discretion of government as to how best to use that property to serve the people of Grenada.
So as it stands right now, what we've seen happening is just the demolition of the property?
Just the demolition and clearing.
There is nothing designated there?
No, just the demolition and clearing of that site.
Okay.
I just believe that as a parliamentary representative, there are certain sites, and there are others that I will be addressing as well, that are dilapidated or in disrepair and that need to be demolished, cleaned up at best, but demolished, and afterwards, whatever future use is determined, so be it.
Okay. For now, my question has to do with, yesterday would have been cabinet. We all woke up yesterday morning to the news that a popular supermarket in Grenada was closing the doors. Has the cabinet been abreast as to what would have eventually lead to that option? And apart from the statement issued by the Ministry of Finance, can you share any light as to what would have caused that to trigger?
I think that the statement issued by the Ministry of Finance shed enough light on the issue. It is a private entity that has made a public announcement, and as a result, it necessitated a response from the relevant ministry, which was the Ministry of Finance. Apart from that, I would leave it to unfold, because both parties sort of implied something to the other. And therefore, I don't think it would be appropriate for me. It's one of the few times that I'm glad I'm the Minister of Health. That's outside of my ministry's purvey. The relevant ministry has made a comment.
Are you aware whether or not there will be continuing negotiations, or that's the end of the...
I know that this government seeks the interests of the people always. And we are very concerned, and our heart goes out to the workers, employees of the entity. And as such, we, as a responsible government, will be actively seeking the best interest of the employees.
Pleasant good morning to all. Nisha Paul, the New Today newspaper. Minister, can you provide an update as it relates to the status of the second phase of the hospital, please?
Yes, like I said, the electricity official or the permanent electricity connection, it has been facilitated. That's going to allow the testing of the major systems, elevator, air condition, etc. We have been having meetings, as I said, there, senior management meetings. It's still a construction site, so to speak, but two of the floors, second and third floor, are near completion, should be ready to be occupied by end of January. We have been meeting with the contractor weekly just to make sure that we stay on schedule. We're looking forward to moving labs in. We're looking forward, in particular, to moving A&E across. There are some other works outside of the actual building, phase 2 building, that needs to be complete for that building to be fully operational. One is a connecting corridor, and the other is the relocated kitchen. You will see that both of those, well, the relocated kitchen, the construction is well underway and on schedule. After the kitchen is complete, the corridor can be completed. We do expect those to be completed within the first quarter. That's one of the reasons we've been having weekly meetings now with the contractor, just to make sure that we stay on schedule there. The bits and pieces of equipment, I refer to it loosely as bits and pieces, but significant number of equipment, and so some have been ordered, others to be ordered, and to facilitate the move over. I actually would like to take this opportunity, and I can confirm for you in the next day or so through the Director of Hospital Services and the contractor to allow the media possibly to tour that facility to see the progress for yourself.
When are you expecting it to be fully completed? You said by the ending of the first quarter?
I expect to begin the phased move-in by end of January, the phased move-in. Now, while there's work, or if there's work going on and various things, then the last part would be accident and emergency, because that needs to have a fully functional system and surroundings with it. But labs, I think, can move in very quickly. Administration can move in very quickly. And we are also looking at having that dialysis wing to be there as well. So with the progress reports, there are various moving parts. The Ministry of Health is the recipient of that building, but there are various other ministries and entities that play a part, as well as private sector like Grenlec, and quasi-private sector like NOASA. And so the reason we've been having those weekly meetings is just to make sure that we pull all of these entities together and make sure that this thing flows as efficiently and effectively as possible.
Rochelle Payne, MTV News. Mr. Minister, can you give us an update on the polyclinic in Guelph?
Polyclinic in Guelph is actually ahead of schedule, the physical structure that is. Again, don't take my word for it. You can pass by, and I can also arrange a media tour there. I think the best thing is to see for yourself, take the pictures, and show the nation. So that I do expect to have that open in 2020 because it is ahead of schedule construction-wise. The reason that I'm phrasing my response that way is that the financing is in a phased delivery. So we are not in a position, because the construction is ahead of schedule, to say, well, let's order the equipment early. Certain things come, it's a European funded, they come in tranches, and the tranches are at fixed periods.
Minister, you mentioned earlier about an OECS project and a lab moving to a Tier 1 system. What exactly does that mean?
That is a certification that our laboratory would have. It is in conjunction with the Bureau of Standards, and we have engaged Caribbean MedLab Foundation and CARFA to make sure that we maintain a certain standard. So and Pan American Health Organization, sorry. So it would be a certification. Right now, our lab is certified by our Ministry of Health, i.e. our Ministry of Health provides the laboratory services. We are now taking that to a level where regional entities would be setting a standard that exists, and that we have sought and acquired the financing and the mechanism in terms of the partners to move to that standard. That standard is not just the physical equipment and the tests that can be done, but that standard is also with the personnel and the level of qualification of the personnel. That standard begins to deal with not just the ability to test, for whatever we test or should be testing for, but the quality of those tests, the number of false positives or false negatives that you get, is dictated by that. So it is an achievable, there's a level, there's a roadmap for it, and we have engaged the necessary partners to get us from where we are to that Tier 1 certification. It is similar to the process, while different, but a similar process to receiving the CAM certification for the internship, i.e. recognized by a regional entity that you have a certain standard. We are doing the same thing with laboratory. I expect to look at the same in terms of engaging regional entities for accident and emergency. We keep moving on with regional entities for dialysis, etc., to make sure that we don't just improve our facilities and say we improve it, but we get a regional entity to certify the level of improvement, similar to what we have done with respect to Princess Alice, with the smarting of it, to have Pan-American health organizations say that we have achieved a certain standard. That is the journey for the improvement of healthcare.
So, Mr. Minister, sorry, but can you give us an update on negotiations for fringe benefits for public servants?
No, I can't. There is a government negotiating team. I am also very wary of the fact that there are other entities that are responsible for making comments in the public for that. All I will say is I look forward to a timely and amicable solution.
All right, colleagues, anybody else, or are we good?
We have, yes, yeah.
Yes.
So having completed the Q&A on my part, I want to take this opportunity again to welcome our Acting Commissioner of Police, Commissioner Edwin Martin, and to pass over to him the spotlight, so to speak, so that he can address the imminent rollout of breathalyzer and enforcement of our DUI regulations.
Thank you very much, Minister, and officially good morning, one and all. Certainly my main task is to speak briefly about the implementation of our breathalyzer system and testing. But of course, I think you would agree with me for using this significant platform to as well expound a bit on the achievements of the RGPF. So I crave your indulgence in permitting me to use the platform to do so as well. As it relates to the breathalyzer, however, I want to indicate that the RGPF strongly endorses the bold and courageous step of government to pass and implement breathalyzer legislation. This certainly will empower our officers with the authority of carrying out alcohol testing on motorists suspected of driving under the influence of alcohol. And I must at this stage identify, commend, congratulate, and thank the St. George's University for an investment of over $40,000 US, which played a significant role in the procurement of the equipment for the implementation of this initiative. We do hope that with the implementation of the breathalyzer, we will achieve a number of things, significant among which is that this new legislation will now act as a deterrent to attitudes of drink and drive, that it will afford a timely intervention on the part of law enforcement by taking action on suspected cases that will prevent accidents and save life and property, the net value of which will be to improve road safety for motorists and pedestrians alike. A complete briefing on the breathalyzer legislation and the demonstration will be held on Thursday at Police Headquarters Conference Room. The message on this will be passed out by the head of our Community Relations Department, Superintendent Cohen, by end of day today. So that's as much as I will say on breathalyzer now, pending the fact that we do have a more detailed briefing coming on Tuesday. And certainly it is on Thursday, and certainly it gives us the opportunity to at least get the message out that this is here and will be implemented, as Minister indicated, effectively on Monday. Now on the force side, in terms of an opportunity to give an idea as to where we are at, I think as a force we are doing very well. as of October 31st, 2019, our statistics are indicating major reduction in almost every category of crime over the same period of 2018. And I want us to note as well that these reductions are building on an overall 6% contraction of reported crimes in 2018 over 2017. And the categories we are speaking to, and these are the following reductions we are seeing. As it relates to fraud, we are seeing a 46 contraction or reduction in fraud cases, 17% reduction in sexual crimes, 8% in harm offenses, threats and assaults, 0.8%, not yet a full percent, but the needle is moving in the right direction. 2% on property crimes and drug offenses by 8%. In addition, and for the first time in our history, in recent history, I should say, we are tracking a 75% solving rate for reported crimes, noting that the norm is between 70 and 73%. So hence, not only are we tracking reductions in major categories, we are also increasing our rate of detection, which shows consolidated effort and excellent performance by the RGPF in enforcing the laws and bringing criminals to justice. All right? In addition, as you are well aware, we have also seen the major single seizure of cocaine in our history, the largest ever. 416 kilos of a street value of 41.5 million. And in addition to that, we have also seized $249,611 in other counter-narcotic operations. These successes that we celebrate are jointly attributed, of course, to the support that we have had from the community, our stakeholders, and of course, a very hard and tenacious work exhibited by our officers. In addition to this, the government has provided significant support during the past year. And sometimes we do not take sufficient time out to recognize the investment that government has made in investing in the RGPF to enhance our efficiency. And so I want to just flag a few of those that we've had for the past year. We have an authority to implement some 60 traffic wardens. Currently, we have 30. And if you think they are effective, wait until you see the additional 30 roll out in January of 2020. We also had the procurement of 5 motorcycles and 7 vehicles to improve the mobility of the RGPF. We have also had the investment of $100,000 US to assist with the procurement of a new vessel for Coast Guard. We have had the purchase of a new radio communication system in excess of $600,000. We also had 60 recruits and the promotions of 125 police officers. We also had an investment of over $250,000 to improve the physical plant of police stations and departments, the bulk of which will be going to improvement at our Coast Guard base. In addition, government has also given approval for the implementation of a new medal and ribbon system for the recognition of officers for outstanding duty. So I think generally the investment in terms of the sustainability, the advancement, and enhancing the efficacy of the RGPF from government side has been significant. And I believe sometimes we definitely need to flag that because often we really do not. I want to conclude basically by indicating that the successes of the RGPF hinges on community support to a large extent. And I want to thank the community for the assistance they have given us for the year thus far and historically. And I do look forward to continued support in 2020 as we continue to work and build in increasing the efficiency, effectiveness of the force, and improving the quality of professionalism and service we deliver to our community. On that, I will close and open for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioner. I do have a number of questions, but I hope you'll be able to take all of them. Are you in a position, I know that you said for the breathalyzers, there will be a specific rollout on Thursday, but to the persons who are listening now, are you in a position to say what is the penalties?
The penalty, The penalties we do have, but they are enshrined in the legislation, and that is what we will roll out on Thursday. What I can give you now additionally is what the limits are. And if that would probably help as a buffer to the question. The limit really and truly is 70 micrograms per 100 milliliter of breath, because there are two methods of testing. You can test breath and blood. So 170 micrograms per 100 milliliter of breath. And in the case of blood, it is 160 micrograms per 100 milliliter of blood. So anything over that threshold then will become an offense. The authority, the procedure, and the offenses, we will delve into that and unpack that for you on Thursday, so you have a very detailed and comprehensive understanding.
Yeah, you went on to speak about our 75% crime solving rate. Can you point out whether or not there are any form of new crimes becoming trendy?
There are new crimes. As you know, the electronic crime is a new crime. So certainly as society evolves, as different acts become impacting society negatively, new crimes will emerge. And it is a very good question that we must understand, that we're not dealing with crime as a static situation, but that crime itself is evolving, and over time you have new crimes and offenses that was not there historically, which to me provides the foundation for actually crime to be perpetually growing. And when we are seeing contractions, notwithstanding those realities, I think it is best positioned for us to see the significant impact that your law enforcement entity is making in addressing the crime situation.
Can you provide an example besides the electronic crime? In speaking of electronic crime, is it with electronic transaction? Is it electronic defamation? What type of electronic crimes are we looking at?
The electronic crimes, and remember I think we led the region in having probably the first charge on this, where persons were sharing pictures of body parts and was not authorized. So certainly that is one. We are now delving in the area of new cyber crimes. Some of the crimes now you're having because of the internet protocol. You have crimes against machines, you have crimes in machines, and you have crimes with the use of machines. So computer crimes are basically multidimensional and involve different layers. There are some of them that are mediated primarily by internet protocols, and some of them are driven only by machines. So in those areas, there are crimes being committed in different areas. They all piggyback, however, to actually foundation criminal acts, whether you commit fraud, whether you commit stealing, whether you, in those issues. But the manner in which the crime is being conducted has significantly increased simply mediated by the existence of technology and the internet.
What role is our telecommunication providers are playing in assisting to solve those crimes?
We do have a relationship with our telecom providers and internet providers generally, and where there is any case requiring investigation and collaboration, we do seek, and I can't recall of any case where we do not get collaboration from those entities.
Okay. I also need to ask for now, I don't know what my other colleagues have. Under Grenada's law, I think it was passed somewhere in the early 2000s, we established something called the deportee registration of persons who are returning to Grenada that needs to be registered. Are you in a position to tell us how much persons are registered, what type of crimes they probably have done and come in, and the possibility whether some of those persons are repeat offenders in Grenada?
Yes, you are correct. We do have a protocol that we follow with deportees, and yes, there is documentation, and there are other procedures we follow with deportees, which is not appropriate for this forum. But for giving you exact numbers, I will not be able to give you that here. But what I can say is that deportation follows a very broad spectrum, and persons are not only deported for committing crimes. There are persons who are deported when they violate the immigration status and visas and so forth and come back for those reasons. In terms of the regularity of the criminal deportee in terms of local crimes and the involvement in local crimes upon deportation. I think that's a point you're trying to get at. That is not overwhelming by the information before me. We do have deportees who do take part in criminal activity, but we are not seeing an overwhelming amount of deportation contributing significantly to criminal activities in Grenada.
Okay.
Before you ask the other one, I can say the information on deportees, I believe you did try to engage us on this. ACP Prince was leading on this to provide you with some response, and we can follow up after this press conference to see where you are with that. Okay?
Thank you so much. Well, my other question has to do, in recent times, one of a talk show host is on radio of claiming that there are Grenadian passports being sold, not necessarily diplomatic passports, but regular passports that are sold on the open market in the underground world. Are you aware of such, and can you enlighten us more about that?
Well, what I can say is that only as recent as this morning, I actually heard of that rumor being perpetuated. And as it relates to passport, what I would say is that the Office of the Immigration Department is responsible for the distribution of passports. And an unsubstantiated and scandalous remark like that can be very detrimental, not just to the force, but to the image of our country. And as far as I am concerned, the issuance of passports is well regulated. And if anyone has information to that effect, I would really encourage the persons to come forward with it so that we can look into it. But to me, at this point in time, it is unsubstantiated. I do not have any information to suggest that. If that is something that is occurring, I will really be interested in looking into it. And the fact that that assertion has been made, I will not be waiting for persons to come to me with it. I will be going to whoever is responsible for perpetuating that kind of rumor, because there is an interest on both sides. If it's something like that is happening, it is important that it be resolved. If that sort of information is being perpetuated and is not true, it is critical that it be identified for what it is and neutralized immediately.
If I can just comment a little further on that too. It's unfortunate because I'm glad that the commissioner is going to pursue it, because I see that as possible just scandalous or rumor mongering on an entity or a division of the government and Royal Grenada Police Force in particular. There's a center of excellence. I know there have been criticisms or comments recently with respect to the cost to the public of passports, but I think we all have to agree that our immigration department here and the service that they provide can be seen as a center of excellence within the RGPF and within the public service as a whole. They are extremely efficient, effective, and therefore should not be subject to scandal or rumor mongering. So I think it's commendable for the work they're doing, and also that the commissioner takes it seriously enough to make sure that individuals don't continue to defame that section or any other section.
Minister, just to add finally, you may be aware that I am the Chief Immigration Officer. So this is an attack. This is Martin selling passports as far as I'm concerned. I am the Chief Immigration Officer. And if it's one thing I value, is integrity and my reputation. And so by implication, because of the holder of this office, it is a direct attack on my office. And so I must get to the bottom of this. We will see where the facts on this lie and where this case goes.
Commissioner, I just want to understand it, the concept that you presented here. Are you saying that there will be an investigation that will involve the persons who have recited such on radio?
Well, from a technical police point of view, an investigation is initiated when there is sufficient grounds to pursue a criminal investigation. The fact that there has been an allegation and there has been rumors perpetuated, that will be looked into. And once looking into that, leads to the necessity of a more in-depth criminal investigation or investigation to assert what has really transpired, then yes, that will follow. But the first thing we need to do, the rumor may or may not be true. So we need to first look into, is there any merit in this, or is this just some loose remark made somewhere about the place? I can't say the essence of exactly what has been said and to the extent to which we can ascribe any sort of liability. We must first verify this, and then we will determine whether or not an investigation can go in from a law enforcement context. But looking into it, if that you term as investigation, then yes, it will be looked into.
Okay, ACP Martin, Rachel Bain, MTV News. I'm not sure if you saw a video circulating where a politician in Carriacou was recording a police officer in active duty, and the police responded in a not so good manner. So what I would like to know is, when does recording a police officer in public becomes obstruction of justice?
I can't speak with any authority to a specific case that you are referring to, but I'm contextually taking what you mean. Police officers are doing law enforcement work. You have your camera and you are wrong doing something. The issue of recording in public space is an issue that has become a norm in society. However, there is a balance in my mind as to whether or not you are carrying out an act within a space that impinges upon an officer being able to execute his particular duty. If it becomes that your intervention is obstructing the officer in the execution of his duty, he can take a particular action, ask you to move on, tell you to get out of the way, stay a bit up, because when officers are enforcing the law, many things can happen. You come close and you want to record, firearm is being used, anything is being done, you end up getting injured. So there's an interest in person's safety, and there is a mutual respect that we all must exhibit in allowing officers to execute their duties uninhibited. As a matter of fact, it can amount to an offense in obstructing an officer in the execution of his duty. Now, I'm going to all that length without being able to speak directly to the specific case you are referring to. It could be that officers may react in specific cases and might have erred in their response. Of course, if that happens, the individual affected make a complaint to us, and we look into the matter as we have done with any allegation made against police officers.
My own clarity, Commissioner, is there any restrictions as to filming at ports of entry and departure?
That has to be a matter that will be enforced by the management of the particular port. Because we have police officers, for example, at the Grenada port, but they do law enforcement duties and they enforce regulations and principles that the port has in mind. They work towards the interests of the port. So the port can have protocols that may or may not be allowed at those ports of entry. I am certain that you would have traveled and identified in airports and so all over the world. No cell phone use, no whatever. As a matter of fact, I myself have been shut down from using phones in traveling certain airports, not having seen the sign. So it is like can have mechanisms in place which the police, working in tandem with them, will enforce that policy. Whether or not that is at any of at the seaport or so, which I think is what you might be referring to, I can't speak exactly to it. We'll have to clarify that with the management of the port.
As it relates to the circulation on Facebook with the counterfeit $20 note, can you comment on this? Has there been reports to the RGPF that, individuals actually have the counterfeit or would have experienced transaction with the actual counterfeit?
I cannot speak to recent complaints of counterfeit being circulated, but we do have a standing protocol in responding to that. We have investigators within the force that is certified by ACCP as identifying counterfeit currencies, and our protocol involves whenever counterfeit is identified, we partner with the ECCB office here, do our verification, and carry on the investigation and inform the public where and when as is appropriate. But I cannot see of any recent case that is happening. I'm sure if that has happened, the different levels would have taken the appropriate action to address it. Hope that addressed your question.
My final question. Can you tell us what is the murder rate for 2019?
We're up to 16 now total. As of October, is it the end of October? We were 13. So we're up to 16, and that's an increase from 11. So when I indicated earlier that we have a reduction in harm offenses, in the category of harm offenses, that speaks to murder, manslaughter, grievous harm, maiming, causing harm. It's the entire category. The only increase we have in that category is murder. And all the other areas are down, actually witnessing an 8.3 contraction. So even causing harm, which has plagued us for a number of years, is on the reduction. And I'm happy you ask, because I think as a people and as a community, in my analysis of some of those homicides, it speaks largely to our inability, to our unwillingness to either seek other interventions and alternative legitimate means for resolving disputes. And we seem to thrive on this issue of respect and disrespect. And normally you hear when you delve into these sort of violent crimes, he disrespect me. And there is the perception that if I go to the police to redress, I'm seen as weak. So this is a culture that we really need to stifle. And actually the police is now looking at rolling out into 2020 brain over brawn initiative, meaning let us be smart in responding to persons who communicate or who does infractions to us, rather than trying to respond with physical force and then putting us into more problems. So we have recognized that that's a critical consideration that we need to address. But notwithstanding this, the likelihood of this matter, of the offenses we have in terms of homicides, actually, if you compare with what's happening in the rest of the region, you would realize that we are really, really significantly low. But certainly every single homicide, like every single sexual case, is just one too much for us. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Yes, I think we have exhausted our time. Is there anything you want to say, Minister?
Yeah, just in closing to say that we are into the festive season of Christmas. Let us focus on the true meaning of Christmas. But I do know that while we will be focusing on that true meaning, we also will be celebrating. So as Minister of Health, I want to urge us to celebrate in moderation. I want to urge us to avoid, I truly want to say that I hope that I do not see any one of you at any of our healthcare facilities for any cause of emergency over the festive season, and in particular, immediately afterwards, because you have indulged a little too much with the sugar or the salt or so, and your pressure is up or your sugar is up. Because traditionally, our surgical wards, medical wards, have been full in the month of January because of people indulging in excess in the month of December. So let us try moderation. It is a multifaceted approach. One of the first approaches here is the rolling out of our DUI. Ministry of Health has a responsibility dictated by World Health Organization to prevent or decrease any of the occasions of individuals visiting a hospital. One of those occasions or causes would be road safety. So I want to commend the Royal Grenada Police Force on their rolling out. It has been a pleasure and honor working with them on this. We do have a series of public service announcements that will be coming out this week as well, designed by the Ministry of Health and the RGPF together. So we are looking forward to you avoiding the visit to the hospital over the Christmas season, unless it is to bring cheer and merriment to the providers of healthcare and those who unfortunately may be there. So I do look forward to you visiting our doctors and nurses just to wish them Merry Christmas and not to be attended by them. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Commissioner, any final words from you?
Well, just finally, I will say I want to make sure that all of us as media persons, please come out on Thursday. A critical part to the success of the implementation of any program has to do with public education. So please come out and help us get the information so you can help us perpetuate that into the public's mind. Certainly you do not want to be part of the statistics that will contribute to the first arrest or ticket as it relates to driving under the influence of alcohol. We want to be able to say that since the rolling out of this, notwithstanding the efforts of law enforcement at the end of the Christmas season, no one has been charged or ticketed for the issue of dealing with driving under the influence of alcohol. I think the intervention is timely. It is good that it's happened at a festive time, so hopefully help us get that information out that we can have more responsible driving and reduce the incidence of the accidents and fatalities that we have around this time. Look forward to seeing you on Thursday. Thanks again, and please continue to give us your support.
What time, sir?
That will be finalized by Mr. Cohen, but tentatively will be 10 a.m.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Minister, the Honorable Minister for Health, Social Security and International Business, Mr. Nicholas Steele. He's to my immediate left, and to his left, Commissioner of Police Edwin Martin. And earlier on, we had, of course, Mr. Charlton Henry, the Acting Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Health. Thank you, colleagues, and thank you, viewers on GIS Channel 22 in the diaspora and, of course, online. Thank you so much for viewing. Have a great day, everybody. Hello everyone, welcome to the Government Information Service. I'm Leslie Ann Johnson. In the studio with us, to my immediate left, is Mr. Michael Stephen, the Comptroller of the Inland Revenue Division. And to his left, Mr. Randy Boyk Cadet, he is the Deputy Comptroller. And we're talking about the core function of the IRD, and that's how we'll start our interview today. So I'll start with Mr. Stephen. What exactly is the core function of the IRD?
Thank you, Leslie, and good day to everyone. The Inland Revenue function is primarily to collect inland taxes on behalf of the government of Grenada. And the reason why I say inland taxes is because the other arm of the revenue collection agencies of government is the Customs and Excise Division, which collects taxes on the border. Now, inland revenue is known by certain persons, but there are certain sections of Grenada that has no idea what inland revenue is about. In fact, when they hear about inland revenue, they think about VAT. Right, but actually VAT is not a separate unit by itself. VAT is part of inland revenue. In fact, VAT is one of the major taxes collected by inland revenue, some 36% of total taxes. The other taxes collected are income tax, PAYE, pay as you earn, corporate income tax, annual stamp tax, property tax, and so forth, that persons are probably more familiar with. Another thing we need to think about is that the youths of Grenada basically have no idea what inland revenue is about. And that is why next year, 2020, we have a drive to go into the schools and speak to the young persons to educate them on inland revenue, so that obviously when they go home, they'll speak to their parents about it and ensure that, compliance is elevated nationwide. So essentially, as I said, the IRD's function is to collect taxes inland, and I would have said what these taxes are.
Right, the school visits. You have a time frame in mind when this is going to start? Is it the first quarter of next year, the second quarter? When are we going to start this?
Well, actually, we want to start early. So in the first quarter of the year, we are definitely going to hit all the schools. I will send all the officers. I may go to a few of them, and they will speak to the students in the nation and educate them.
Right, so before I go to Mr. Boyk, what are some of the main issues that you think you'll need to bring out to these young people, just so they understand? And of course, as you mentioned, when they take the message back to their parents, there will be that level of compliance that we're looking for. Well, Mr. Boyk, you can take that.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Compliance is a big thing, a big deal for us at Inland Revenue, and we have a common thread that usually, a motto, a theme. We said that the more educated the taxpayer is, the more compliant the taxpayer will be. And we believe that for us to strive as a nation, we have to change the tax morale of the people. We have to change the tax culture of the people. So going to the schools is one of the things that we saw fit in. Build the image, build the morale of the tax public by the schools so that ultimately they can take the message back home to their parents.
Great. Mr. Boyd, I'll stay with you still. What does compliance mean in the context of the IRD?
I smile at that because, as you may be aware, and Nisha may be aware too, we are currently going through what we like to call a transformational journey where we are moving away from revenue to compliance. So compliance is a big deal for us. When we speak about compliance, there are 4 pillars. We speak about registration. All the taxpayers who are operating within Grenada, our businesses, individuals who are eligible and liable to pay taxes, you are expected to be registered. Secondly, we talk about filing. That's a particular compliance type that we have to promote more. So we want to see more persons file, and later on we'll discuss the reasons why people need to file. We also look at payment as a 3rd pillar of our compliance, and the 4th pillar is reporting. Declaring and putting on paper that which is supposed to be declared truthfully. So those are the 4 pillars of compliance. Just to repeat them: registration, filing, payment, and reporting.
So it is important, of course, to file.
Yes. In the past, most persons, and we hear today that, I'm paying my taxes, so why should I file? But filing is also a requirement by law. And it helps Inland Revenue to verify that which was paid on your behalf. In cases some persons have been overpaid, there are some cases where persons have been underpaid. When you file, you actually declare that this is what was supposed to be paid on my behalf. And filing also gives you the opportunity to claim back a refund. So we really want to promote and speak loudly on the whole importance of filing. We want to move away from just the revenue, and focus on the 4 pillars of compliance.
Right. What are some of the strategies used by the IRD to improve compliance?
This is a good question. The nation needs to appreciate that Inland Revenue right now is in the process of encouraging persons to comply. We are not only focusing on forcing compliance. So there are 2 main types. You can force compliance or you can encourage compliance. So there are a lot of softer methods of tax administration that we employ. So, for example, simple calling of taxpayers to give them reminders, that's something that we do, and we will continue to do that in 2020. Sending reminders, we send press releases every year, reminding persons about their due dates for a particular month. We make phone calls, we send text messages, we interact more with the taxpayer. In fact, we pride ourselves, and the common thread of Inland Revenue is to let taxpayers know that, hey, there is also a softer side of what we do, the more intimate side. So to set up payment arrangement, we want to hear from you. We meet you halfway. These are some of the softer methods that we use in promoting our compliance. And of course, if you fail to relate to us on that softer level, we'll have to use what is the last resort, the heavier methods, where we force you to comply by using some of the methods, that is captured in the Tax Haven Act, for example, seizure, liens, garnishment, etc. So we have 2 main focus: the softer side to begin with, and if all goes well, if you fail to comply with the softer side, we have to strengthen our approach. I want to say here too that when we speak about compliance, we look at the education, because as I said before, we believe firmly that the more educated the taxpayer is, the more compliant they will be. We look at service delivery. So throughout the office, officers appreciate and they know that they have to give the Grenadians proper service to help build the confidence in the people. And the last part is enforcement. So it's education, it's service delivery, and it's enforcement.
All right. In terms of how much time usually would one have, or let me put it this way, there's a process by which you would know that you have a certain amount of time to register, to file, to pay, to report, in other words, to comply. What is the process for this so that somebody understands exactly what is expected of them within a certain time frame?
And that question requires a whole new interview, but nonetheless, let's look at the registration process. You operate in business. Within 30 days, you have to notify the comptroller that you operated when you come in and register. In fact, the comptroller also has the power to force register you. So what we will do is send our officers out to look for businesses, encourage you to come in. If you don't come in, then we will register you. For filing, for VAT, for example, because as the comptroller said, it's one of the most important tax types that we have, you have 20 days after the end of the month to file and pay. For payment, let's assume income tax. This one is most of Grenadians have to pay income tax within 90 days at the end of the fiscal year. So let's assume that the fiscal year runs from January to December. You have 90 days. Sometimes it's March 31st, sometimes it's March 30th, to which you just submit or remit payment. We also have PAYE, where every month the employer is expected to remit from you or take from you or remit to the government. I think it's seven days after the end of the month to submit same. So different compliance pillar has different due dates. And as I said, maybe in 2020, we'll have to go through our entire public education and look at each compliance pillar individually so a person could understand more what's supposed to happen.
Right. Mr. Stephen, what are the various types of tax types that the IRD will be focusing on to improve its compliance?
Well, actually, the entire gamut of taxes we are going to be focusing on. In fact, we're not going to zero in any tax in particular. Because as I said, the PAYE and the corporate income tax, the annual stamp tax, the VAT are important taxes, but also property tax and property transfer tax and other tax. And there are some licenses as well that we didn't mention, motor vehicle license, driver's license, and so forth. Mm-hmm. And we are going to be focusing on all those tax types because persons don't generally like to pay tax, right? And as Randy would have said, there are two types of enforcement, the forced and the voluntary. I prefer to focus on the voluntary because what you need to do is put structures in place so that whoever is comptroller, myself, Randy, whoever comes on stream sometime in the future, will be able to maintain a certain compliance level in the country, right? Years ago, the major method was forced compliance. Where you go after persons aggressively all the time to collect the revenues. But there's a school of thought nowadays, most recently. In fact, we were speaking to a very well-known international consultant, and he was saying that once compliance is properly implemented in a tax revenue administration system, the taxes will flow, right? Because persons will be aware of what the obligations are, and they will comply. They will register on time, they will file, and they will pay on time. And because there are certain measures in the Tax Administration Act, for late payments you will have penalties, interest, and so forth. Persons will tend not to want to be in a situation like that, where they have to pay, in addition to the tax, they have to pay penalties and interest. Mm-hmm. So in that way, you are encouraging voluntary compliance. Some might say by force, because some are saying that the rates are rather high. For example, the penalty for non-payment is some 20%. That is high, yes, but if you pay on time, you won't have to pay a penalty.
Of course.
Right? And even the interest rate for non-payment, 1.5% compounded per month, right? That is high. But if you pay on time, you don't get yourself in the situation where you have to pay interest on your tax obligations. You don't have to worry about that. In fact, there are other avenues open to the taxpaying public, right? If you have a situation where you cannot pay on time, right? The law has provisions that you can apply to the comptroller for an extension to pay or file, right? And once you do that, you can give yourself some more space to come up with the payments and the filing, right? So there are a lot of mechanisms built into the tax laws that actually benefits taxpayers, but for some reason, some persons tend to ignore these things and they allow their taxes to build up over time, and then they will apply for waivers and so forth. And a waiver is not guaranteed. I mean, just because you have penalties and interest that are 3 times more than your tax doesn't mean that we are going to waive it, because, why did you get yourself in that situation in the first place?
Okay.
Right? But still, you can still write to the Inland Revenue, Minister of Finance, Comptroller, and ask for consideration of a waiver. And based on what your situation is, you may be given some type of relief in that sense. But as I said, we don't want to focus any one particular type of tax. We focus on all, although there are some taxes that have very low compliance.
Right.
Like the annual stamp tax, for example, which we realized had a very low compliance rate. So we implemented some structures to try and elevate that level. But essentially, we focus on all areas, and those that require more effort than others, we tend to give them a bit more push, right? So basically, that's it.
But why was there a low compliance rate for the annual stamp tax, Mr. Boy?
Well, the reason is many. What we see happening, filing has never been a main thrust of Inland Revenue over the years. It's focused a lot on payment. So now we want to focus a lot on filing.
Okay.
And just to add to what the Comptroller said, most of the taxes that we administer are self-assessed. So the taxpayers declare that I am supposed to pay X.
Right.
And by declaring that, we expect you to pay X. In failing to file or failing to declare,
Listening audience, you're listening to Hard Talk Grenada. A special good morning to those of you joining us on 97.5 City Sound FM, 89.5 CRFM, 92.9 Sister Isle Radio, broadcasting from Hillsborough, Carriacou, and 94.9 We Noise Radio out there in Brooklyn, New York. And of course, a special good morning to those of you joining us on the live video. Please remember to like and share the video with your friends, your families, your contacts, and everybody that you know. We're up for a very interesting conversation this morning that we're hoping that you would be a part of. And of course, right next to me, I have none other than Mr. Devon Romaine, who is going to be joining me today in conversation. Good morning, Devon.
Good morning to you, my dear, and good morning, Grenada, and wherever you are.
All right. Now, just as a point to note, this morning we had an extended post-cab briefing. I hope everybody was able to tune in and join the conversation. And with that in mind, we are going to have a little bit of an extension on the program this morning. So we're going up until about 1:30. So don't turn your radios off just yet. Those of you who are joining us on 97.5, which is City Sound FM, you can join us on 89.5 CRFM after the 12 o'clock hour has hit, or you could do it now if you want to. It's up to you. And those of you joining us on the live, you can remain on the live because we are going to be going up until 1:30. All right. And for those of you in the diaspora, 94.9 will be carrying us all the way through. All right. So you are invited to join in on the conversation. And of course, the lines are open. 440-7377 for our local calls, 440-7377 WhatsApp messages, and 347-329-3101 for the people in the diaspora who wish to join us in conversation as well. Listen, Devon, the thing never stops, Every single day, it's something new. Every single day, you have to,
Grenada is alive.
Grenada is alive. That's a really good way to put it. Grenada is alive. We have a lot of blood pumping in our veins,
Unlike between 2008 and 2013, you was wondering around now what is going on in Grenada.
I know.
Understand?
So
we are alive.
We are alive. Now, I know everybody is itching to find out, well, what are you going to talk about today? But I think you guys have an idea as to what the topic for discussion is going to be. And with that in mind, I'm going to read a press release that was given by the government of Grenada, of course, refusing allegations for the closure of a certain establishment, right? That establishment being Ansel and Associates. And it reads, the Ministry of Finance have observed a statement purported to be issued by Andal and Associates Incorporated that suggests a decision taken by its management to close operation is in some way directly related to actions taken by the government. It must be noted that the decision taken by the management of any entity to close its operations is purely managerial in nature and should not be attributed to government. The government of Grenada wishes to categorically deny this claim and empathizes with the many workers that have been affected as a result. It is important to establish that tax compliance is the responsibility of all taxpayers and that government has no authority in law to waive taxes. Historically, government has made special arrangements that has worked with clients, taxpayers, to allow them the opportunity to settle their legal obligations to the state via payment arrangements and other means. We therefore use this opportunity to congratulate the taxpayers who have worked and continue to work with the government to meet their responsibility. However, there are instances where clients or taxpayers blatantly refuse to settle their tax obligations, some of which are collected from the ordinary Grenadians who purchase items and pay taxes like that of VAT that must then be remitted to the Inland Revenue Department, Ministry of Finance. As a responsible government, the collection of monies from the working class and the failure to pay over the same to the government while business owners enrich themselves cannot and will not go unchecked. The government, therefore, encourages all taxpayers to file and pay their respective taxes to the Inland Revenue Department or Division, and further discourages any attempt to engage in any fraudulent or criminal activities at the Customs and Excise Division. The government remains committed to engaging clients or taxpayers on the necessary payment arrangements that would allow entitles to be in good standing with their tax obligations, all right? And this was sourced from the Government Information Service. Devon?
Well, it was very important for government to respond, to what was said by the particular company, so as to give our countrymen, the benefit of the doubt and understanding much more as to what went on. So we will try our best with the information we have to, to share with you and, to sensitize as much as we can.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, this ties in directly, Devon, to a conversation that we were having during this week in terms of government making moves and putting structures in place to ensure that they are responsible and accountable for the state purse or the people's money.
of course.
And we have to identify that whenever an individual pays that, I go to a supermarket, you go to a supermarket, or to any outlet that collects that, right? It is not in any way the company's coffers that is being affected.
No, it's not.
It's not like the company has to, if that is 15%, it's not like you paying 10% and the company has to put in an additional 5% to bring it up to 15%. No, you are paying your full 15% VAT, which means that whenever those monies are collected by whatever business place or individual, it needs to be handed over to the government. They are just an entity in which you are paying your taxes and contributing to the growth and development of the country.
Yeah. So in other words, the business person who is collecting the VAT is like a vehicle transporting that VAT from me, the consumer, to the government.
Absolutely. And we have a first caller on the line for the morning. Good morning, caller.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Good
How
morning,
are you?
sir.
Hi there. Devon,
What's up, Bull?
well, you know, I sit down here, man, and I listen to the post-cabinet briefing day. That's a food boy. What, you listening?
Yeah. Of
That
course.
is what they call food.
Yes, man.
Yeah, from the Minister of Health and especially the Commissioner of Police.
Of course.
Yeah.
But he has some question that ask them media and them must not take what people tell them to come and ask questions.
They must do their research.
They must do their own thing. They mustn't take them thing from NDC and come and ask. They're making themselves to shame. Yeah. And the next thing I want to ask you, man, I ain't see me partner, I ain't hear me partner, Sheldon, what happened?
Don't worry, you will see, man. He
Why,
pretty much occupied. Yeah,
Huh?
he pretty much occupied at this point in time.
Yeah, I miss him bad, boy.
But he did.
I like to hear you and Sheldon banner. I mean, Duncan doing a good job too.
Of course, definitely.
But when two of us there, he doesn't have a lot of kicks, boy.
The election fever, man.
Yes.
Yes, sir, brother.
So everything right, by the way?
For the time being,
Yeah, I just called to just see them two words, man.
Yes, man.
Yeah,
And,
the first cabinet briefing was nice this morning.
yeah.
And tell Kim, you'll get what coming to him.
Oh, Lord.
He will get what coming to him.
One day,
Congo.
Congo.
He will get. He playing his stupid. You'll get it, and he's very, very close by. Take care, brother.
All right, my brother. Have a wonderful day.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, and you know, this whole situation with the particular business entity, right? And so in the shutting down of all its business place, and thus having over 200 workers on the breadline for whatever reason, it is not a good situation for any company or any individual or even the government to be in at this point in time. So I would hope, and I know that this government, right, in all it's doing, right, will ensure that it tries its best to meet every individual, you know, and deal with it on its merit, to ensure that we have all the workers back on the job and persons enjoying their Christmas.
Absolutely. We have another caller on the line. Good morning, caller.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Miss Cammy.
Good morning, Miss Duncan, and good morning to Mr. Romain.
Good morning, Camille.
And good morning to Sheldon Scott.
Yes.
Hello?
Yeah,
we're hearing you.
And good morning to whoever is listening. America, England, Canada. Miss Duncan, you all there?
Yes, we're hearing you. Go ahead.
Eh?
Yep, we're hearing you.
Are you hearing me?
Yeah,
Yes,
we're
we're hearing
man.
you.
Go ahead and
Well,
talk.
good morning to Patricia and Matthew. And good morning to Mr. Watts and Depo Dean and my friend in Canada that always call, and my friends in England. I know it's cold out there. You all keep warm. But, if I look strong, we'll take a little shot before I go.
Reverse.
It's kind of nice here for the time.
All right.
I don't see the Christmas spirit yet.
Oh.
Yeah. Anyhow, my heart go out for these hard-working people. With under the people have gone home. They send them home. Just give them a phone call. I don't know much, but I cannot run them out on these people. But what I'm saying is, with my little knowledge, if you have different businesses all over Grenada, I mean, the people inside the tax place, they always send out a notice on Shaggy and radio stations that come in, if you have a problem, you could talk to them, they will give you a time. I mean, a businessman, he must have people working with him. He has people working with him to guide him along the way and say, sir, well, look, so in the case we don't pay, you can't expect to be making money and you're not paying your taxes. It's not right.
Yeah.
Give taxes taxes is not right. The people in the Ministry of Finance, they're working. And they're taxes. We all go in and buy the sugar, the flour, the chicken, the back, and everybody. So you making money, I don't want to pay tax. It's not right. And I want to say something to the Grenadian people. Stop calling the Prime Minister name in this. The Prime Minister has nothing to do with that, Grenadian. All you want to go behind all your back. You don't see the man name and the building. Please, at my heart goes for the people.
Yeah.
At time as now, as Christmas, everybody looking at a little money to want to do a little shopping.
Yeah.
So I wish that the owner of this place, this supermarket, all you sit down and think and go and give the people something in the inland revenue. Pay the court, pay your taxes. You understand? All you have the brain, all you are making money. You can't expect to making money, you don't want to pay. You cannot rob the country.
Yeah.
And stop calling the man. Stop it! Are you calling the man and the man out of supermarket? I'm sorry for the poor people. They had a good suit to pay, they had a rent. They had a children to take care of. I mean, come on, it's not right. So don't go put it there on nobody. Put it on the people that own the place. You all have a good day for me.
All right, darling.
And come now and get what I have.
Yes.
Come and support me.
We
support the local people.
All right,
All
Sister Kami.
Come and support me.
Wonderful.
Anyhow, Sharon and everybody have a good day. Miss Duncan, everybody.
All right, darling.
And them, Ian and them in Canada. Have a blessed day. I don't so bright like some of you. But I pay me a little bill when I have. When I have little money, I pay me a little bill.
Yeah.
I don't expect to make money, I don't want to pay bill. You have to pay your tax straight. Have a good day.
All right, you
darling.
too. You know, it's a really sad situation
It
because we're looking at 200 people on the brink of Christmas being displaced from their job, and not just these people directly employed with that establishment, but we're also looking at their families, and we're also looking at suppliers of that establishment, the different farmers, the ordinary woman who makes her little guava cheese, and you know, we're looking at all of those things, and it really is a very, very sad situation, you know, and we all hope that this issue can be resolved as quickly
as possible.
Possible, because we all feel it for, you know, knowing in this time that there's somebody out there that isn't able to do for themselves. You
And
know?
You know what is interesting, because I've been hearing lots of persons, you know, targeting government and so as it relates to, you know, certain parts of that. But, you know, the Inland Revenue Department has a softer side of it,
Yeah.
because they continue over the years to impress, to send out bulletins to the nation, right? Impressing on them that paying taxes is very important. They give them the timeline as the VAT and other taxes when it's due and everything like that. And still for all, even when they give you that notice, right, to come in and pay and so on, you still cannot meet it or you're not, they reach out to you and say, look, come on, let's make an arrangement, a plan, right, so you can fulfill your commitment to government, right? So there is room, lots of room for negotiation, right, because government need the taxes, right, to be collected, and the business wants to operate. So there has to be a knocking of the head.
You know, and it's funny because the Inland Revenue Department has stated on numerous occasions that if you're having difficulty, provisions are available where you can apply for extension of time.
Of course.
You know, it isn't just cut and dry the way that it's being put out there. Because we're looking for public sympathy. It's not just cut and dry. It's not just pay your taxes or else. That's not what it is.
No.
The Inland Revenue Department has historically been very fluid very cooperative
Very
with
much so.
business
Yeah.
places in terms of getting their taxes paid. You know, so it's important for us to take that into consideration. And I mean, we would sit here and talk about he should or should not pay his taxes, or government must be lenient, and all of that. We can debate back and forth. The fact of the matter is, taxes in any facet is important.
Very important.
And I don't think we understand how important taxes for a country is. Because we sit here and we talk about, oh, we have so much taxes to pay, and oh, you know, it's hard because taxes. And listen, I have family in the diaspora. And anybody who is being honest, and I say this with no sympathy, anybody who is being honest would tell you that life over there is hard because there's so many taxes.
Your paycheck out there, sometimes as much as 40%
It's
goes
taxes.
to taxes.
Just taxes.
State, county, federal taxes.
Yeah. So anybody that's, and I wish somebody from the diaspora, an honest individual from the diaspora would call, just call, and give us an idea as to what it's like. I'm not saying that that's the situation in everybody's case in the diaspora, but generally, there's a lot of taxes. I have friends in Barbados who talk about the many taxes that they have to pay. Education tax, road tax, public transportation tax. They don't even use public transportation, but they still have to pay public transportation tax. They have to pay tax on fuel. It's so many taxes, you know? And we complain about, some of us only pay our little 15% VAT. And we complain so much about, I'm not saying that you don't have a right to complain, it's everybody's right. But I'm just painting the picture for you to get an idea as to how blessed we are in Grenada as a people. And sometimes we forget. Sometimes we focus so much on the negative that we forget that we have been blessed with so much as a people.
And it's so important to impress on all of us, as you say, the importance of paying our taxes. For example, every year, right through the budget and so, government has to allocate monies for healthcare. Healthcare is not a business where you make money. For road rehabilitation, for agriculture, for education, government has to allocate those money. Now, where does those money come from?
Exactly. Now, we have to take into consideration, let's break it down. What are the purpose of taxes, right? Taxes is there to provide the government with funds for spending without inflation. So basically, in order to manage or to get that expenditure, that recurrent expenditure, in order for them to get that revenue, there must be taxes, right? And these taxes are then used by the government for a lot of purposes. You know, things like infrastructure, development, and welfare projects. You know, so you have to take into consideration that there are so many things that these taxes are used for. And if we are looking at a couple $1 million well in taxes not paid from just one individual, that is
a problem.
That is so many things that the government could have used that money for, right? That means that we didn't have to reduce on the seed program. That means that we didn't have to reduce on the Imani program. That means much more money could have been placed into to be allocated to the housing program for the year. So we have to look at it from that point of view, because really and truly, these are the things that it affects. We have another caller on the line. Good morning, caller.
Good morning. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, good morning, caller.
Yeah, good morning.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. How should I start off? I was listening to another radio program this morning, and I was saying that sometimes we get on the radio and we talk about things that we don't have sufficient information on, and we conjecture and we summarize and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But after reading, and it was in respect to the Anders and associate them business. But after reading a statement by the government of Grenada, I get the feeling, the impression, or I conclude that it has to do with tax, maybe non-compliance of the payment of the tax, and so on. But even with that, I always like to tread cautiously and so on. But as we say, well, if that is the case, obviously the company should know that they have to pay the taxes, and especially some of those taxes collected from consumers been paid to the company, because it's a supermarket, they operate a restaurant and that kind of thing. The other thing like corporate tax, that is a different matter. So if the company is owing the government tax, they should pay the taxes. But what I'm saying, the fact that they have taken a decision to close down all branches, and of course I agree with the government statement that it will have to be, or it is, a managerial decision. But my focus is, and based on the sentiments of the people, what most of the people are saying, or a lot of the callers are saying, if not all, is that why didn't the government, some try to lay the because, sometimes we cannot discuss things objectively. Everything we lay at the blame of the government, of the politicians, especially the ruling party, that some of us don't like. So I am saying, because what I'm seeing happening now, or what is not happening now, is what I focus would happen not long from now. Why didn't the company come to, or go to government, or the government departments where they should be paying the taxes, and put the case to them and say, listen, we understand that we are, lagging behind, we are in arrears, and we need to pay the government, we are owing, or I don't know what is the sum, how much. Why don't we arrange something instead of having to shut down the company? I'm not saying the government has shut them down, Instead of they deciding to close all branches, right, to talk to the government, right, department, to the revenue, the inland revenue department, or tax department, and say, listen, we found ourselves in such and such situation, but at present, we are prepared to enter into an arrangement to the government to, and at this point we could pay so much and so much, and work out something.
Compromise.
Especially because the concerns is around, especially this time of the year. Whether it was around this time, but especially around this time of the year, where people are looking forward and people want to be in the employment, want to be employed so that they could have monies to take care of some basic needs, People usually shop more around that time, or sometimes we overshop and that kind of thing. But really and truly, as I say, I want to believe, rather than lay the blame at the foot of the government, I believe that, I am saying, that's my opinion, right? That's personal to me, that I believe that the company should be more responsible. But believe me, I have been hearing for some time now, but I am not the person who just hear things and just run with it. But I've been hearing for some time now about this non-compliance. But as I say, I had no evidence, no proof of that, so I did not want to join in saying that. Okay, I want to leave that topic there. On another note, I was listening again to another program last night, and that radio station that calls itself the national radio station, maybe it is so, but sometimes I find some of the hosts not very responsible, and sometimes, maybe I shouldn't say not very responsible, but sometimes I find them a bit biased in terms of the comments. Even, so if people call, directly you hear the voice, but sometimes some of the comments that they read, some of the postings that people would send, so you can't get through by voice, so you would send in your thing. And sometimes I find I'm not hearing them reading some of the things I've seen and some of the things that I myself would have said. Because last night I saw a few posting by some individuals. I don't know them personally, but I know the position because they are very bitter. They call on the radio, they write on newspaper and all of that, right? And so on. And I wrote something as well. I expressed my view, my opinion. But I did that more than once on more than one program, and sometimes I ain't hearing my thing being read at all, and that kind of thing. But in all what we do, whether we like those who are in power or not, we must demonstrate and exhibit respect at all times. If we want respect in return, we must respect others. We cannot expect to disrespect others, disrespect the office, and always be cynical about them, always believe that they don't have good intention, and them alone that have, and so on and that kind of thing. I find we must move away from that. We must become mature enough, and so on, and we must respect others. For example, some of the comments, and I know the handful of people, I may not know them personally, but as I say, I've heard and read comments by them many times. and they were questioning the integrity of the people on the Integrity Commission and so on, questioning, the honesty and the truthfulness and the what have you, and so on. And as I say, well, maybe we can do that, one might question that, but sometimes you look at the people who are questioning, and why is it that, as I would put it, and I put it that way before, and that was part of my comment or question last night. Is it that we judge others by our own standards? Why is it that we believe that somebody cannot be truthful or honest or sincere? There's no probity with that person, but I am the person, I'm so upright, and that kind of thing, And so I have a concern with that. And the last thing I want to raise is that sometimes we lay the blame at the foot of government in almost every situation. And I'm not saying that at times government doesn't have to take the blame, the politicians don't have to take the rap. At times they do have to take the rap. But on Sunday, I had an experience. I'm talking on for me now because I had the experience. I was getting that pain, real aching and thing in the leg, this contracting of my muscles, my calf, and my ankle and so on. So I said, no, boss, I need to seek some help. But there was no doctor. I'm calling from St. Patrick's. There was no doctor around. So I had my daughter call the health center. There was no doctor on call, but they called Maribor for us, and because we couldn't get through, I was using the numbers in the book, and we couldn't get through. But before that, we tried to get onto the general hospital. We got through, and asked for a number to reach Maribor, and they said they didn't have a number to reach Maribor. I couldn't believe that. Are you going to blame politicians for that? Somebody should be on the death. Well, no, somebody answered. I shouldn't say at the general hospital somebody answered. At Maribor, nobody answered then. But however, the health center in Sutton were able to get them. But they said that they had a doctor on call. And I could tell you about this doctor on call experience. Sometime last year, one of my doctors had a problem in the wee hours of the morning. So I had to seek help. So I got a friend who came over and he dropped us to Maribor. So before we left Sutton, they said...
All right, caller, I don't want to cut you.
So when they said doctor on call, I thought the doctor was there. When we went in the wee hours of the morning, they down us there. And the doctor was just strolling in a three-quarter pants, just strolling in, coming in at the time. Are you going to blame the politicians for that? I say, in the health centers and the hospitals, doctors, we have the nurses, we have the orderlies, we have the cooks, and we have the other ancillary workers and everybody. All of us have to come together to make Grenada a better place.
All right.
And we must be the change that we want to see. A lot of the time we talk and we criticize and we condemn. But what are we doing to make a difference?
I agree. Caller, I don't want to cut you, caller.
But
in the interest of time, yes. All right, but thank you so much for your contribution.
All right, boss.
Let me just make a quick announcement again for the people who are tuning in with us. We're here until 1:30, of course, due to an extended post-cabinet briefing. So you can stay with us on 89.5 CRFM, or you can join us on the live video. Of course, we're streaming live right now, so you can join us on Facebook on the live video, or you can stay with us on 89.5 CRFM or 94.9 We Noise Radio for those of you in the diaspora who's going to give us a call. There's a caller who's been calling for the longest while, and he just doesn't seem to have that look. Just try again, and we'll definitely take your call. There he is. Let's take that call. Good morning, caller.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah. First of all, I want to just comment a bit on the situation there with the annual issue.
Yes, and let's try to keep it very brief because we have a lot of people.
I won't stay too long, but I have 2 points I want to make. Sorry, I won't stay long. Mm-hmm. But you all just read out something that the government presented to the nation concerning the annual issue, isn't it?
Yes.
I would like you to play it again or read it again, if you get a chance,
Okay.
I would like, because from what I didn't get it in its entity, but what I'm getting there is that the government is saying that it do not involve in what is happening.
No, that's not what it says. But I'll read it again in case you don't understand. But the government is not saying that they are not involved. What they're saying is that they're not involved in the closure of the business. They have no dealings in the decision for the business to be closed.
But again, the gentleman I don't know if the gentleman, but what we see in the media and Facebook and in WhatsApp is that the gentleman said he tried to contact the government to negotiate, and there is no agreement. That's what the owner, I think, was stressing on. Huh?
Right. Now, let me put some facts in there because the facts cannot be disputed. From research done, and it's very easy to do research in Grenada. Information is very readily available.
Yeah.
From research done, it has been proven that Inland Revenue is very cooperative in terms of figuring out ways in which...
So, yes, I understand all that. So
right.
Why they didn't the gentleman work out something?
All right, caller, finish your points and then I will talk because I don't think it's wise for us to be going back and forth like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you want me to talk or you're going to talk?
Yeah, finish your point. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what I'm saying, I think they should sit with the gentleman because there's hundreds of workers that is being sent home. And you saying, Devon is there sitting saying, I am here saying, we're sorry for them because they do not have a job and they that and this. But at the end of the day, the finance people, they come, how they call the guy who control the money or the finance in customs? The controller?
The controller.
Controller. Inland Revenue Department, the controller.
Right. So we need to sit down with the gentleman, the owner, and we shouldn't be running from the fact that government have a role to play in this. You know what I mean?
All right.
Government do have a role to play in this.
Okay, thank you for your contribution, caller. All right. You see, the problem is sometimes we jump to a lot of conclusions without really identifying facts. So the Inland Revenue Department, they were on GIS last night, and they have expressed that they are very much willing to work with anybody that has had difficulties in paying taxes. Now, really and truly, Grenadians, do you honestly believe that in all of the years that these taxes have not been paid, do you really and honestly believe that the government just did not engage him? Or that Inland Revenue did not speak to him? Or that there was no meeting of the heads to discuss whether the taxes were paid? Or how the taxes can be paid? Do we really believe, and I want you to think about that for a moment, do you really believe that government just woke up, or Inland Revenue just woke up this morning or yesterday morning and decided that he has not been paying taxes and we want all our money now and that's it? Let's just think about that for a moment. It doesn't sound logical. It doesn't sound reasonable, you know? And identifying the history that the Inland Revenue Department has had with many business owners in Grenada as it relates to the payment of taxes, as it relates to leniency. There's even provisions made by the department to ensure that if you are not able to pay your taxes on time, you know, that a discussion can be had, that a common ground can be met, so that these taxes can be paid. Because we're speaking about the people's money here. We're not speaking about income tax. We're not speaking about individual taxes that the business has to pay. We're speaking about that, you know?
And that is one thing, and I will be very blunt about it. That is one thing, and I know, and I want the government not to compromise on. Certain types of taxes that you have business persons collecting, for example, VAT. Now, VAT is basically a consumer tax, right? Where the consumer, any consumer, unemployed person walking into a supermarket or a restaurant or whatever and paying for goods and services and so, right? And is being charged a percentage for VAT, which should go directly to government, right? At the middle of the month or the 20th of every month. That in itself, I as an individual cannot compromise with nobody. And I'm not saying that is what the individual has been involved in, but I cannot compromise with nobody who is collecting tax on behalf of government and not, right, giving government the due. right? That's unacceptable.
You know, and we need to move away from making these pronouncements that government hasn't done this and government hasn't done that, because we don't know. You know, I'm not going to sit here and say, well, government needs to, or that the business place needs to, because we do not know what arrangements have been made between the individual and inland revenue. We don't know that. You know, we for a fact know, though, that it didn't happen this morning.
Nope.
We for a fact know that it didn't happen yesterday.
Or even last year.
Or even last year. So we have to be careful in the pronouncements that we make, you know, because we need to shy away from making this thing a political issue. It is not a political
Far
issue.
from that.
Because if this administration is to leave office tomorrow, any administration that takes over will be left with this burden of collecting taxes from people who are non-compliant. This is not an NNP issue.
Or NDC issue.
Or an NDC issue. This is a issue that we as a people of Grenada must ensure that we look at from a logical lens or a logical point of view, an objective point of view. And yes, we do sympathize with the people. We do sympathize with the workers. And we are hoping that the individual can meet, because let me make this very important point that I don't think a lot of people know. There was no seizure of accounts. There was no garnishment of accounts. You know, the individual is still in full control of his accounts. You know? So then we must ask the question, if this is the case, why? Why was such a drastic measure taken? That's the answer that we are looking for, you know.
Of course.
We are all looking for that one answer. Why was this drastic measure taken? You know? So we have to be very careful in the pronouncements that we make.
And I'm sure that there are a number of companies or individuals, business people, individuals in Grenada who is at this point in time owing government taxes, perhaps in the thousands of dollars, and they cannot pay it. But they have went into the Inland Revenue Department and reached some amicable agreement so they can continue operating. Thus, government will collect, you know, what. That's why we keep saying that the Inland Revenue Department has this softer side. It's not a give me what is mine and or we come in and take it. No. There is always room for negotiation where persons can come in, talk to them, you know, explain to them their problem, and they will facilitate you.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we were in looking at the workers, I mean, they, of course, first must be guided, of course, by the Labor Code and with reference to the Labor Commissioner to see what their options are. Because from what I understand, they are not represented by a union.
By a union. That is
so what happens to these people?
That is sad, yeah. And looking at it from a sympathetic view of the workers. I mean, there are so many workers, and at this point in time, there is no union representation. I mean, these are things that we have to continue to look into to ensure that workers' rights and benefits and so are being secured. Mm-hmm. Right? And it's a work in progress, and I really hope that for the workers' sake, that an amicable solution is met by the individual business persons, and you know, the business places can be open and re-employed all involved.
You know, and I wanna talk about a comment that was made by one of the other political parties, a representative from their party, concerning amnesty. And for those of you who don't know, amnesty is basically a period of forgiveness, right? A period of forgiveness for tax debt, right? And we must first understand that in that period of time when that government, when that party was in office, the amnesty that was given was on the basis that there was a recession. Right now, there is no recession.
No.
Let's get that clear. There's no recession. So what would be the basis for giving an amnesty? And then if that is the case, it means that any other business out there who is experiencing a financial shortfall or who figures that they can use a financial shortfall to be non-compliant can simply say, okay, well, I need amnesty. Yeah. And then what is the government? You see, we have to know what we want as a people, huh? Because while we sympathize with the workers, we must also be logical, right? And we must also think critically about this situation. Now, here we have 200 persons that are displaced, that are on the breadline, that may now need government's assistance to really get through the season. Right. We have a couple $1 million in limbo. Basically, it's in limbo.
Yeah, it is.
Because, I mean, it's taxpayers' money that's been collected, that money that's been collected and has not been handed over to Inland Revenue. So it's in limbo. And we must now take into consideration the fact that there are so many other families who could have benefited from that money.
Lots. Projects.
From that tax money. So many projects that money could have been infused into.
Of course.
You know? So we have to look at this thing logically. I know that as human beings, we tend to look at things from an emotional standpoint, but there must be a balance, you know? Absolutely. And then we must also say to ourselves, because we are the same people who turn around and say that there's too much taxes, you know, that government must make better moves to manage the country and to manage the coffers of the people. And then when government makes a move, the same people turn around and criticize that same move.
For their own petty personal gains.
You know? So we must not turn this into a political ploy, because it is not in any way a political issue. It is an issue that is going to touch the lives of many of our people. You know, so many Grenadian families that are going to be affected by this situation.
Yeah.
So we must rally for an amicable, quick resolution to this issue. And the resolution must not be amnesty. I do not support that. No. The resolution must not be, well, government must ease up. I don't support that either. The resolution must not be, well, why government don't leave the man alone?
Can't.
It cannot be that, you know? And I'm saying that simply because those are the comments that have been made. We've seen those comments.
You see, and one of the things we must be mindful of, the whole question of the individual's responsibility. We must be responsible, right, with things that matters.
Yeah.
As a business person, an individual,
yeah,
right, we are obligated to government to pay tax. As the Bible says, give Caesar what is due to Caesar.
Yeah.
Right? It is our obligation to do it. When we cannot do it, right, we go forward to them and say, look, we cannot do it at this point in time, but give us a period of time that can. And government has been doing that for not just business people, but individual persons who have been owing on their property tax and so on. You've been hearing it.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a whole, in my view, it's a question of our responsibility as citizens to continue to meet our obligations.
Yeah.
Give Caesar what is due
to
to Caesar.
You're so right. I mean, we have to look at this thing from an objective point of view. You know, it's the country's money. It's our money. It's the people's money. You know?
It's the same workers that are being displaced. It's their money.
It's their monies, and it must be paid. And this is a general statement to all
it is.
business places that collect taxes on behalf of the government, because that's basically what they're doing. This is no additional cost. This is just collection of tax on behalf of the government of Grenada that you hand over to the government of Grenada at the end of every month.
Because you know what, when the business people do that, right? Whoever business people are doing that, collecting taxes and not passing it over, how can persons trust you? That's a level of trust, eh?
Yeah.
Because you're losing trust with government,
Yeah.
and you're losing trust with even customers and your employees.
Yeah.
When you're not doing what you're obligated to do.
So my question here is, and I think the question that everybody needs to ask is why? Why exactly? So there was no garnishing, there was no seizure of accounts, there was nothing like that. So the question here remains why? Why was the action taken? I think that's the answer that really everybody is looking for.
Why was the action taken to shut the business down at this point?
Why was it taken? You know? And we need to be careful in what we say,
of course,
about this issue, because, I mean, we're not trying to step on anybody's toes. We're not trying to, but as Grenadians, we need to, you know? We need to find out what happened to our money.
Of course.
You know? Where is it?
Because, you know, it's a contribution that every single Grenadian is making towards the development of Grenada.
You know, I feel like I have been, and this applies in general to any establishment that does not comply with VAT payments.
And there are a lot.
Personally, I would feel robbed as a Grenadian.
Of course.
You know
You
why?
need to.
Because I have been making my contribution through whatever means is available for me to do that. And if it's not being utilized in the way that it should be for my betterment and the betterment of my children and the betterment of my family and the betterment of the people of the state of Grenada, then I feel robbed, and I should feel robbed.
You know what that reminds me of? A number of years ago, right? Former Minister of Finance, Nazim Bok, and the NDC government has been collecting taxes on behalf of workers and whatever, and has not been putting it in the right place, right? That is a problem. You cannot be collecting, for example, NIS, right? Previous government, right? And I know, for example, the NDC government of 2008 to 2013 has been collecting NIS and so, but has not been given the NIS its due. No, that is a problem. As an individual, as a person who is paying NIS, I must feel hurt.
Yeah.
I'm paying VAT and it's not being collected by the relevant authorities or being given, you know, whatever. I as an individual, I'm feeling hurt. I'm feeling robbed. That I'm contributing, but it's not going towards, right, the development of my country, which I'm contributing for.
I mean, can you just sit and imagine how many things we could have achieved over the years with that infusion of taxes, and not just for that one individual business, but for all of the businesses that have not been compliant.
And I'm sure, and the Inland Revenue Department with the Ministry of Finance and Government has been doing its utmost best to collect taxes, back taxes.
But
and
they
everything
have
like
to.
that.
But they have to, because we have to understand as a people that the monies collected in taxes is what funds wages and salaries,
Runs the government.
what funds welfare projects, what funds education,
The hospitals.
funds healthcare. All of these things are funded by that tax infusion. So when we don't pay our taxes, it's basically not putting monies in our own pockets.
In our own pocket. That's a responsibility we have, right?
You know, let's take this caller quickly. Good morning, caller.
A call back again, Ms. Duncan.
Yeah.
I just want to answer that question for me. What I'm saying is that in Inland Revenue, the custom people, when they see that kind of money, almost $1,000, I mean, that wasn't them to go to him and say, well, look, we are going to give the loan, this is not paying, look how much money you owe us. and do something early to let it rain to all of that. Now they use a state where they have to cut him off, close on the place.
Well,
I wonder if they're getting good to him.
Well, Miss Cammy, from
I
what
mean,
I
they
understand,
no goods coming in. You're not saying they could have got him and say, look, sir, you have $1 million, so that's too much. Come and do something.
from
Oh
what
my
I
God.
from what I
It's
understand,
not
Miss
right.
Cammy.
I wish that I'm sitting here that something work out
Yeah.
and they open up their place
Yeah.
so the people go out to work. People make that place get done, you know.
Yeah.
And that, you know, get a pharmacy there. People are around there. When you don't shop on a Saturday, you come on a Sunday and go and shop. Oh, Lord God.
Well, from what I understand, Miss
And then he blame
Cammy.
the Prime Minister. I don't call his name. Don't call him my name. They're passing up and down. They're provoking people in town.
Don't worry, Cammy. Don't worry.
Bye-bye.
Don't worry, baby.
Miss Cammy, I have a message for you here. It says from Trevor. Trevor says to tell you that he has the dressing for your foot, all right? So he says he says that the guy stopped by your booth in September. That stopped by your booth in September. So if you know anybody in New York, let them know that he has it and they can collect it and bring it down for you. So I hope you hear that. Because generally you don't hear us on the phone, you hear us through the radio. All right, so I'm repeating it. Trevor, the guy that passed by your shop in September, he says that he has the dressing for your foot. So if you have anybody in New York City that's coming home, he can give it to them for you. All right, so get in contact with him. But Ms. Cammy, to answer your question and the question of the gentleman before, from what I understand and from the investigation that I've conducted, Inland Revenue has engaged the gentleman on many occasions.
Yeah.
All right. Let's just take, for example, the sale of the current business. You know, I am sure that with that, they would have engaged him again.
Of course.
Because that's taxes owed. And in selling a business, you must go through Inland Revenue because they must do an assessment of all of your debts and what you owe and whatever in order to approve.
Of course.
You know? And they probably were of the hope that they would have collected at least some of their money.
Out of that sale.
Out of that sale.
Yeah. It's unfortunate.
It is an unfortunate, unfortunate event. We have another caller on the line. Good morning, caller. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, good morning, sir.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, yeah, I apologize for that. I just get lost in transition.
No problem.
Thanks for taking my call.
You're welcome.
Well, this program, I'm telling you, it is so timely and it is on the right track so much that, you know, I hope I doesn't derail it. No, Miss Duncan and Mr. Roman, it is absolutely important for, you know, to draw the example that Mr. Roman draw. But let me say this. Look who is talking. You deduct millions of dollars from public servants' salaries and wages that was supposed to go to the NIS. You did not send a penny to the NIS. When this government took over, they had us to pay over $20 million that you did not pay. But today, the same people that deducted public servant money to send to the NIS and did not send it, today, all of a sudden, they are working class champions. They care about workers more than anybody else. I don't want to be like Donald Trump and say fake news. But listen to this. We must not reward bad behavior. We must not reward negligent behavior. And we must not reward people that collect monies on behalf of others and refuse to hand it over.
Yeah.
Listen, Andal and Associates have some of the most committed and dedicated workers in this country. And they was dealt a very bad hand by the employers, and it is just not right. And we must not tolerate it. You see, if you owe government, hypothetically speaking, you owe government $8 million. You sold a building and a business, part of it, for $16 million. Now, people like me with common sense, I'm saying, well, the first thing I want to do is to clear my debt. Because this is that is what is hanging over my head. So the workers of Andal and Associates have to say to themselves, well, listen, you sell a building for $16 million and you only owe the government $8 million in taxes. What is the rationale for you not paying and then at the same time turning around and close your doors? Brothers and sisters, I categorize such behavior and action as treasonous. Some people might say, well, man, you're really going far. But based on what I explained, there is no other logical reason for me, to look at, but to say that's what it is. Now, let me just quickly wrap here. Now, listen, I spoke to a gentleman this morning that Mr. Ron Redhead, and I asked him the question, are Grenada better off today, both economically and financially speaking, under this government in contrast to the last? Did you know the gentleman could not give me a straight answer? And I'm trying to figure out why. Because the facts don't lie.
No, they do not.
Sometimes I find some of us that is more learned, we seems to be talking down to our people, and we're treating them like if they're not living here and they're not aware of what is happening. So I want to know, so this is the logic in my reasoning here. Unemployment under this government is lower than the former administration, 40% to 15%. More people are working today under this government in contrast to the last government. Public servants receive more benefits from this government than the last. The poor and vulnerable receive more benefits from this government than the last. More scholarships from this government than the last. You understand? More, I don't want to lose my head. More foreign investment under this government than the last. More students attending higher level education under this government than the last. Capital expenditure is far more under this government than the last. No, we can now meet our monthly commitments. Before, we was running at $18 million a month deficit. Our creditworthiness under the last government was negative. Under this government, it's positive. Our debt to GDP ratio under the last government was 108%. Today, it's 55%. No more selling of assets to pay salaries. No, Miss Duncan and Mr. Roman, when these are the facts that cannot be denied, I'm trying to figure out whether you like the NNP, whether you are against the NNP, regardless to what is negative from your standpoint towards the NNP. The facts is, these facts don't lie. And these are facts that can be verified. I'm trying to figure out how can learned people cannot find it in the heart, deep inside the soul, to acknowledge to the Grenadian people when one group of people did better than the other. And then with all of that, they're wondering why we continue to elect this government.
15-0.
Because this is a government that care about the people, and this is a government that, listen, despite the fact of all the money that Anders owe, an associate owe them, they're still trying to find ways, you understand, to accommodate them. But they are not forthcoming, they are not truthful, they are not honest, they are not willing to work with the government, they are not willing to pay the government the money that they collected, from the poor and vulnerable and those who patronize their business that is not their own. They're not even willing to give that to the government. Brothers and sisters of Andal and Associates, I sympathize with you all. But I hope what I explain here and what you will hear going forward will cause you to realize that the problem is not with the government, but the problem is with some people that is just in my local neck of the woods. They are just too voracious. Have a pleasant day, ladies.
Don't
Miss
care.
Duncan and
You
Mr. Romy.
All right, my boss.
All right. Thank you so much for that contribution. We're going to take a very short break because I believe Devon has to leave us. I'm sorry. But we continue. We continue all the way up till 1:30, or maybe just a little before that. And then we will be back with you talking about the good things that's happening in Grenada. I mean, there's so much.
Too much.
So
Too
much, Devon.
From where we were to where we at this point in time, it's you cannot dispute the fact that, look, Grenada has moved miles, mountains to reach where our health sector is better, agriculture is better, right? The education standard, the ability for our young people to gain better education that has been improved. You understand? Everything, every sector of governance in this country has been improved. May not to be to your satisfaction, but be honest and say, yes, it has improved, but a lot more can be done.
All right. So let's take a short break and then we will be back with some more
Hard
information, conversation. So stay close to your telephone. And we are back. I told you a short break. It's a very short break. So the topic for conversation this morning is definitely surrounding the current issue regarding Andalusian Association and, of course, the displacement of so many of its workers. And what next? What's going to happen next? in my personal opinion, I believe that the individual should once again engage government, engage inland revenue, and figure out a way in which this thing can amicably be resolved, because we have to take into consideration the people, the lives of the people that will be affected by this. You know, the humanity of the situation. And it's not a decision that government can make. The individual must make that decision on their own to reopen their doors and figure out a way to get this thing resolved once and for all. You know, it really is very sad that this measure had to be taken. You know, I mean, why? Why are we at this point? Why is this even a conversation? We have to take, and you see, it goes back to the same conversation that in business, the most important aspect of any business are your employees. They are the most important aspect because they, at the end of the day, help to make your business a success. They make or break your business in any business whatsoever, even in the running of the country. And we've spoken about that on many occasions. Even in the running of the country, the employees are the most important aspect of that business. They determine success and failure, you know, of course, with a few contributing factors, but they determine success and they determine failure of a business. And how you treat your employees, of course, has a big role to play as well. So we're asking, of course, as Grenadians, we don't ever want to see this kind of thing happen, where all of a sudden you have all of these people on the breadline. But we must also note that if government continues to condone this kind of behavior, then we'll find ourselves with a country with a lot more problems. We'll find ourselves in a situation where there are more than 200 people on the breadline, you know, because these taxes are necessary for smooth running of our country. We have another caller on the line. Good morning, caller. Hi,
I call
Cammy.
back to the Mr. Have the answer for me for my life. I don't know nobody else coming now, but what I'm saying is, I don't know if he could send a number for y'all, so maybe I could ask Mr. Deputy or Mr. Watt, you know, anybody, you know, send the number for him.
Okay, I'll do that.
You could bring it for me.
I'll do that.
Please.
No problem.
Yes.
All right.
You know, ask him to send a number.
Okay, I'm sure he's listening. Yeah. You know, so we definitely do have to be proactive Grenadians and not just complain consequentially. You know, we want better healthcare. We want better roads. We want better education systems. We want salary increases. We want better for our workers. We want better for our children. We want better infrastructural developments. Where is the money coming from? You know? And we can't say, well, I don't care because the government in power, they're supposed to figure that out. No, that's not how it works. You know? We, the people, must advocate for responsibility with the people's money when it comes to taxes. I mean, I can't believe I go and I pay my VAT, and at the end of the day, whichever establishment it is that's responsible is not handing over my contribution to my country's economy. It's not handing that over. I feel robbed as a Grenadian. You know, I have a comment here that says, from somebody in the diaspora. He's saying that I pay 42% tax on paycheck, 8.75% sales tax, $8,000 a year in property tax, water and sewage tax. And that's just to name a few, you know? And he's in the diaspora. And I wish somebody in the diaspora would call us and let us know, because we as a Grenadian public tend to always complain about the taxes. We're too heavily taxed. We pay too many taxes. But we have to understand, and I think when we understand the reason for the taxes, we'd better appreciate why we pay taxes. I mean, the government doesn't have a mint where it can go and just produce money, and it doesn't really need us to pay taxes. And we have 100% productivity level in the country, and we manufacture all of our own goods and so on. So we have no need for the outside world. No, that doesn't happen, you know? In a perfect world, that would be ideal, right? But that doesn't happen in reality. We must pay our taxes simply because these taxes drive for payment of wages and salaries. It's put into our healthcare system that so desperately needs it. It's put into our education sector. It's put into development for our young people, tuition payments, welfare projects like our needy assistance program and our school books program and our programs for seed programs and assistance with burial and assistance with so many other things. We need to see the benefit in paying our taxes and hope, of course, that one day we are at a place, we are financially stable enough as a country where we can say, all right, let's reduce this tax by a 5%, or let's reduce this tax by a 2% or a 3%. We hope that we can get to that place one day. But right now, we're not at that place. Right now, we are striving for consistency in economic growth, consistency in economic stability. We're striving for sustainability in all sectors. And until that time comes, we must, as Grenadians, understand that our contributions are important. You know? And government, from time to time, has to make a hard decision. From time to time, government has to clamp down. We must understand the reason for doing that. It's so that we all can benefit. It's so that in the long run, the country benefits. The citizen benefits. You know, we have to be mindful of these things. We really, really do have to be mindful of all of these things. So I want to appeal to the people out there, those of you who are on social media, those of you who are emotionally invested in what's happening in the country, in what's happening in this particular situation, to ensure that all efforts are being placed or being targeted in the right direction to ensure that these people are not displaced for too much longer. You know? And as one of our comments from overseas says, everyone has to comply with the laws of the state. End of story. And that is true. We have to comply. You know? And sometimes Peter does end up paying for Paul, you know. It's never a good situation when that happens. But it's some of us that instigate it. It's some of us that cause it. You know, we cry for stiffer penalties. We cry out for more accountability. We cry out for better management. But when government takes decisions to ensure that these things are a reality, that your cries are not falling on deaf ears, then the same ones of you turn around and bash government. We have to know what we want as a people. We have to know what we want. It's either we want the country to be run any old how, or we want there to be stability. Remember, the lines are open. The numbers to call are 440-7377 for local calls and 440-7377 WhatsApp messages. If you're in the diaspora and you're joining us on 94.9 We Noise Radio out of Brooklyn, New York, you can call us on 347-329-3101. You know, we're only going to take a few more calls. We have about 6 minutes remaining. About 6 minutes remaining. So we're going to take a few more calls and then we're going to close off for the day. But guys, I want to appeal to us to just think, critically think. Critically think. Ask yourself the hard questions. Ask yourself the hows and the whys and the if. How does government get the revenue to run the country? Why is it so important for us to pay our taxes? And if we don't, what are the adverse effects of not doing so? Sometimes we don't always get what we want, you know. And sometimes in not getting what we want, that's probably what's best for us. So we must be appreciative for where we are as a country. Be thankful for all of the blessings that we have and that we continue to get. And be mindful that for every action, there's a consequence. And if you don't want to live with consequences, negative consequences, adverse effects, then you shouldn't be doing anything wrong in the first place. You know? So we really do have to be mindful of what we do as Grenadians, what we allow to happen in our country, what we allow citizens of our country to even do to the country. Because it's not always government. It's not always government. Government are not the only people living in this country. Government's not the only people responsible for the things that happen in the country. We must learn to take responsibility for our actions from time to time, if not always. And stop laying blame at the feet of government for every little thing that goes wrong. Too much rainfall is NADMA fault. You know? Like NADMA has a direct line to Mother Nature that says, let a lot of rainfall and wash away a bridge. You know? Something goes wrong in the country, we are quick to point fingers. But what have we done as a people that may have contributed to that happening? These are the questions that we have to ask ourselves sometimes. And what are we doing as a people to ensure that these things don't continue to happen? So we really do have to be mindful as a people and decide what we want. What do we want as a people? You know, I sympathize with the teachers in TAMCC as well, or the staff of TAMCC that's been experiencing this difficulty and have been on industrial action. And of course with the students of TAMCC as well, because they are adversely affected by this entire situation. In a time where they need to be focused on gaining their tertiary education, they have to focus on, well, will I have an exam, or will my marks be submitted, or will my tests be graded, or will I even have class? That's a level of stress that these children should not at this time be experiencing, but they are, you know? And a lot of us still want to lay the blame on the feet of the government. But let's be reasonable. In this whole situation of TAMCC and the council and so on, did you know that union representation sits as members of the council? Did you know that? Did you know that they have sat as members of the council for years? The same council that is responsible for paying these increments, they have sat as members on that council. So they have part and parcel or partial blame to take in this whole situation. So marching up and down on the roads with the teachers and so on, and the staff and so on. You're doing all of that, but you sat as a member of the council. So you knew that this didn't just happen overnight, you know? When the government would have stated that in 2013, when they would have, you know, put a freeze on hiring and so on because of the economic situation in the country, they went ahead and they hired. And they sat on the council and allowed these things to happen. So we must not pretend that nobody knew what was happening and that the council is this independent body that has no representation for the workers and that the council doesn't care about the workers, because if we say that, it means that the union representation on the council doesn't care about the workers as well, right? So you see, we have to be mindful. Know the facts. And the facts do not lie. Guys, we are out of time today. But of course, I do want to say to you, in whatever you do, and whatever you say, be safe. Be secure. We want to be talking with you and not about you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Government refutes allegations of closure of local business. Details to this story and more in the National Report. With the details to the news for Monday, December 9th, I am Sherry-Ann Noel. The government of Grenada has categorically denied claims which suggest that the decision taken by the management of a local company to close operations is in some way directly related to actions taken by the government. The Ministry of Finance says it has observed the statement purported to be issued by Andal & Associates Inc., but it says it must be noted that the decision taken by the management of any entity to close its operations is purely managerial in nature and should not be attributed to government. In a statement, government says it empathizes with the many workers who may be affected as a result, but it's important to establish that tax compliance is the responsibility of all taxpayers and that government has no authority in law to waive taxes. It adds that historically, government has made special arrangements and has worked with clients, taxpayers, to allow them the opportunity to settle their legal obligations to the state via payment arrangement and other means, and use the opportunity to congratulate taxpayers who have worked and continue to work with the government to meet their responsibility. The statement added that there are instances where clients, taxpayers blatantly refuse to settle their tax obligations, some of which are collected from the ordinary Grenadians who purchase items and pay taxes like that of the VAT, that must be remitted to the Inland Revenue Division, Ministry of Finance. As a responsible government, the collection of monies from the working class and the failure to pay over the same to the government while business owners enrich themselves cannot and will not go unchecked. Government is encouraging all taxpayers to file and pay their respective taxes to the Inland Revenue Division and further discourages any attempts to engage in any fraudulent or criminal activities at the Customs and Excise Division. It adds that it remains committed to engaging clients or taxpayers on the necessary payment arrangements that would allow entities to be in good standing with their tax obligations. Comptroller of Inland Revenue, Mr. Michael Stevens, says there are provisions in the law that allows taxpayers to apply for an extension to file their taxes. During an interview with the Government Information Service on Monday, Mr. Stevens explained that if a taxpayer cannot pay his taxes on time, the law has provisions that allows him to apply to the Comptroller of the Inland Revenue Division for an extension of time.
There are a lot of mechanisms built into the tax laws that actually benefits taxpayers, but for some reason, some persons, tend to ignore these things and they allow their taxes to build up over time, and then, they will apply for waivers and so forth. And a waiver is not guaranteed. I mean, just because you have, penalties and interest that are 3 times more than your tax doesn't mean that we are going to waive it. Because why did you get yourself in that situation in the first place?
Okay.
Right. But still, you can still write to the Inland Revenue, Minister of Finance, Comptroller, and ask for consideration of a waiver. And based on what your situation is, you may be given some type of relief in that sense.
This is the National Report. More news after the break.
Our government between 2013 and 2019 has spent over $42 million on house repair and an additional $28 million in soft loans for housing, a total of over $70 million. Additionally, 354 units were constructed and distributed through our partnership with the People's Republic of China, and another 646 units are currently under construction, a total of 1,000 housing units. Your government, our government, hard at work, meeting the housing needs of our people.
Welcome back. Grenada has secured a $38.4 million EC grant from the People's Republic of China for the renovation of the National Cricket Stadium. On Monday, Chinese Ambassador Dr. Zhao Yunshen and Foreign Affairs Minister Honorable Peter David signed the Economic and Technical Cooperation Agreement. The Chinese ambassador is hopeful that the agreement will enhance the existing bilateral relations between the two countries.
According to the agreement, the Chinese government will provide a grant fund of 100 million Chinese RMB yuan, equivalent of 38.4 million ECE dollars, to Canadian government to implement for cricket stadium renovation project and other projects. I hope the signing of the agreement will further enhance our bilateral cooperation under the Belt and Road Initiative and promote the social and economic development of Grenada.
Minister Peter David said the grant funding will go towards renovating the cricket stadium infrastructure, roads and small projects throughout the island. Minister David expressed optimism that 2020 will bring more benefits to the government and people of Grenada.
We are deeply grateful for that. Cricket and sport is an important facet of Caribbean life and Grenadian life, and certainly the use of the balance of the monies to enhance our infrastructure will go a long way to benefit our country as a whole. I look forward to us establishing a roadmap for 2020 where we have deep cooperation, and I also look forward to us working collectively with the Belt and Road Initiative as outlined by President Xi. Only recently, we had a conference in Grenada on Belt and Road, and I must say that we will find a way to ensure that the relationship is deepened in 2020.
Grenada has benefited tremendously from its relations with the People's Republic of China through education, housing, sports, health, and infrastructural development. Moving along, T.A. Marisho College Council has committed to pay an increment of $6.1 million to the staff of the institution. A statement from the Office of the Chairman of the College Council says the first scheduled payment will be made on or before December 30th, 2019, in the sum of $1,500,000. The schedule of the payment of the other tranches will be made by March 30th, 2020, upon the receipt by the Council of the completed manpower and financial audit reports. It says these reports will become the basis for an understanding of the available financial leverage and for ensuring prudence in the schedule and payment of the remaining tranches. Tertiary Education Minister Honorable Pamela Moses recently clarified that the issue of non-payment was one to be rectified by the College Council and unions and not the government, since subventions are paid annually to the college. And with this, we come to the end of the National Report for Monday, December 9th. On behalf of the news and production team, I am Sharian Noel, thanking you for viewing.